Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. So in this video, we will see, what if Ben 10 discovered the absolute Omnitrix and summoned the royal harem of Gwen, Kai, Julie, Ester, Attea, Looma, Charmcaster and Eunice. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Blank. Chapter 1. Harmonic Convergence. The void screamed. Not literally. Vacuum carried no sound, but B.N. Tennyson had learned years ago to hear what shouldn't exist. The silence beyond the plumber ship's hull writhed with wrongness, a tactile pressure against his consciousness that made his teeth ache. And his Omnitrix pulse with warning heat against his wrist. Readings are spiking again. Rook Blanco's voice crackled through the comm system, distorted by interference that shouldn't exist this far from any stellar body. The dimensional membrane is degrading at an exponential rate. By my calculations, complete structural collapse will occur in 17 minutes. Ben's fingers flew across the shuttle's control panel. The muscle memory of 1,000 crisis situations guiding movements faster than conscious thought. 22 years old, 5 years past the Omniverse crisis, and somehow the universe kept finding new ways to end. The Continuum Cascade. Poetic name for reality eating itself from the inside out. I'm going in. Ben's hand moved to release his harness. That is inadvisable. Rook's response came immediate, professional, and completely expected. The temporal distortions alone could atomize organic matter. We should wait for reinforcements with proper shielding. The anomaly will collapse before they arrive. You know it. I know it. Ben was already moving, magnetic boots engaging as he crossed to the airlock. Besides, when has, unadvisable, ever stopped me? I have compiled a list spanning 473 documented incidents. Rhetorical question, partner. The Omnitrix gleamed green against his wrist, the updated plumber suit conforming to his frame like a second skin. Not the scrawny kid anymore. Years of combat, training, and more close calls than he could count had forged him into something harder, sharper. The plumbers had offered him command positions. He'd turned them down. Commanding from orbit while others risked their lives wasn't his style. Never would be. Ben cycled the airlock, and the universe tried to kill him. Reality fracture. D-like broken glass around the anomaly's event horizon. Space folded in geometries that hurt to perceive. Tesseracts of twisted starlight, Mobius strips of frozen time, impossible colors that existed between wavelengths. His suit's heads-up display went haywire. Numbers cascading into nonsense as physics gave up trying to quantify the unquantifiable. The jetpack's directional thrusters fired in controlled bursts, propelling him toward the epicenter. Training kept his breathing steady despite every instinct screaming to flee. He'd flown into the mouth of a null void guardian, fought inside a collapsing star. Been erased from existence and clawed his way back. This was just Tuesday with better visual effects. Then he saw it. Suspended in the center of the anomaly's eye, untouched by the chaos. Devouring reality around it. A structure. Crystalline architecture flowing in curves that suggested Galvan design but wrong somehow, evolved beyond even Azimuth's aesthetic. The structure pulsed with bioluminescence. Green and gold light washing through transparent walls in rhythmic waves that reminded Ben of a heartbeat. Or breathing. Rook, you seeing this? Static answered. The interference had become absolute. Alone, then. Story of his life. Ben engaged the thrusters again, navigating through floating debris that shifted between states of matter, solid, liquid, gas, and things that weren't any of those. One chunk looked like crystallized time, frozen moments visible inside like insects in amber. He saw his own face reflected in its facets, but younger, older, versions of himself that had never existed and always would. He looked away before it drove him insane. The structure's entrance irised open as he approached, a doorway of liquid light that his scanner couldn't penetrate. Ben hesitated. Every tactical bone in his body, and he'd grown a lot of those over the years, said this was a trap. Obvious, blatant, the kind of setup that got heroes killed in the historical databases. The anomaly pulsed. Reality screamed. Behind him, the cascade consumed another chunk of space-time, erasing it so completely that Ben couldn't remember what had occupied that volume a moment before. Trap or not, it was the only option. He plunged through. Gravity reasserted itself with stomach-lurching abruptness. Ben hit the floor in a controlled roll, came up in a combat crouch with the Omnitrix already glowing. The interior was impossible. Vaulted ceilings that stretched into infinity despite the structure's finite exterior. Walls covered in scrolling Galvan script interspersed with Mathimat. ICAL formulas that made quantum physics look like basic arithmetic. And at the chamber's heart, rising from the floor on a pillar of solidified light. An Omnitrix. But not. Ben had worn 3 versions. Studied the schematics until he could rebuild one blindfolded. This was to those what a supernova was to a candle flame. The device hovered in stasis, larger than the standard model, its band compos. Of interlocking segments that shifted through configurations too fast to track. The hourglass symbol. No, not an hourglass anymore. A mandala of intersecting geometric patterns that hurt his eyes when he tried to focus on them. Suggesting depth and dimension beyond 3-dimensional space. Colors chased each other across its surface, green bleeding into gold into colors he had no names for. And deep in its core, something moved. Awareness, intelligence, power that made his current Omnitrix feel like a child's toy. Hello, Ben. The hologram materialized without preamble, and despite everything, Ben felt a smile tug at his lips. Azimuth, first thinker of the Galvan, creator of the Omnitrix, the universe's most brilliant mind housed in a body barely a foot tall. The Galvan's expression held its usual mixture of exasperation and grudging pride. Let me guess, Ben said, standing from his crouch but keeping his muscles loose. Ready. You built this, hid it in a collapsing dimension, and somehow knew I'd be the one to find it. How am I doing? Surprisingly accurate, though you're missing critical context as usual. Azimuth's hologram circled the floating device, not looking at Ben. The absolute Omnitrix. The final evolution of my life's work. I'd hoped to never complete it. That made Ben's smile fade. Azimuth hoping to avoid creating something. What's wrong with it? Wrong. Nothing. Everything. It functions exactly as designed, which is precisely the problem. The hologram gestured, and the air filled with cascading data, star charts, temporal maps, dimensional lattices. The continuum cascade is not a natural phenomenon. It's a weapon, deployed by an intelligence that exists between moments of time. Left unchecked, it will unwrite reality from the Big Bang forward. Ben's mouth went dry. How do we stop it? We don't. You do. With this, Azimuth indicated the absolute Omnitrix. It contains the combined genetic templates of every sapient species across 10,000 galaxies. More than that, it can access the fundamental frequencies that underpin reality itself. In the hands of someone with the moral foundation and experience to wield it, the absolute Omnitrix could seal the cascade permanently. But, Ben heard the unspoken caveat. But it requires a power source beyond any individual organism. The harmonic energy needed demands. Azimuth paused, and Ben realized with shock that the Galvan looked uncomfortable. It demands a royal bond. The term meant nothing to Ben. Translation. Ancient celestial sapien mating practice. Actually, though, mating is a crude simplification. When a being of sufficient power and cosmic significance reaches a critical juncture in their existence, the universe itself identifies compatible resonances. Individuals whose life frequencies harmonize at a quantum level. Bringing them together creates exponential power amplification. Understanding dawned with all the subtlety of a gourmand at an all-you-can-eat buffet. You're talking about a harem. I'm talking about a tactical and metaphysical necessity that humanoid species have romanticized into various cultural traditions, yes. Azimuth's hologram fixed him with an intense stare. The absolute Omnitrix will identify 8 compatible resonances and establish quantum entanglement with those individuals. They will be drawn to you across any distance. The bonds will grow stronger through genuine emotional connection, mutual respect, and, yes, romantic attachment. Only when all 8 bonds achieve perfect harmony will the device unlock its full potential. Ben processed that. 8 people, pulled into his orbit by cosmic necessity. 8 lives disrupted. 8 individuals who'd have every right to hate him for it. And if I say no, then the cascade consumes everything in approximately 47 days. Every timeline, every reality, every moment that ever was or could be. Erased so completely that there will never have been anything at all. Azimuth's voice softened, just slightly. I wouldn't put this on you if there were any alternative. But I've run the calculations 10 million times. You're the only being with the correct combination of genetic compatibility, moral foundation, tactical experience, and cosmic significance to survive the activation. Anyone else would be annihilated. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the absolute Omnitrix's pulsing hum. Ben looked at the device, then at his own Omnitrix, the weight that had been on his wrist in one form or another since he was 10 years old. He'd saved the universe more times than he could count. Fought gods and monsters and everything in between. But he'd always chosen it. Every time, his choice. 8 people wouldn't get that choice. Will they be safe? Ben asked quietly. The bonded individuals. Will this hurt them? The bond itself causes no physical harm. Emotional and psychological effects will vary based on individual temperament and circumstances. But Ben, Azimuth's hologram stepped closer. You need to understand. This isn't mind control. The bond identifies compatibility, creates connection, but it doesn't manufacture feelings. It simply, rates what could develop naturally given time. Time we don't have. That's not really an answer. Because I don't have a better one. For the first time in their long association, Azimuth sounded old. I'm asking you to carry an impossible burden. To bring 8 people into a cosmic war they never asked for. To ask them to care for you, to fight beside you, possibly to die for you. It's unfair, it's necessary, and it will define the rest of your life, however long that is. Ben closed his eyes, thought of his parents, his cousin, his friends. Everyone he'd lost, everyone he'd saved. The way, of the Omnitrix, any Omnitrix, had always been responsibility. Power and responsibility, forever intertwined. This was just the logical endpoint. If I do this, Ben said, opening his eyes, I do it my way. No forcing, no manipulation. They get the truth, all of it. And if even one of them refuses the bond, we find another way. There is no other way. Then I'll make one. Ben stepped toward the pillar, reaching for the absolute Omnitrix. I've gotten pretty good at impossible. His fingers closed around the device. The universe exploded. Gwen Tennyson was 300 pages into a Sumerian grimoire when reality lurched sideways and dumped her into somewhere else. One moment. Her apartment in Princeton, books stacked in organized chaos across every surface, tea going cold on the desk, comfortable solitude of academic research at 2 in the morning. Next moment. Standing in a cathedral made of crystal and light, the grimoire tumbling from her hands to clatter on a floor that reflected infinity. What the? Mana flared around her fists on pure instinct, magenta energy crackling as she dropped into a combat stance. Her mind, trained by years of both academic rigor and life or death battles, categorized the situation with ruthless efficiency. Teleportation, forced, powerful enough to bypass her wards. Location unknown. Threat level, extreme. The space around her was wrong. Not evil, not corrupted, just other. Geometries that bent in directions she couldn't name, even with her advanced understanding of dimensional physics. The air tasted of ozone and starlight, and beneath her feet, the crystalline floor pulsed with rhythmic light. A heartbeat. The entire structure was alive. Before she could begin analyzing the magical architecture, light flared again. A second figure materialized 10 feet away. And Gwen's breath caught. Kai Green hit the ground in a roll, came up with a plumber-issue plasma pistol tracking for targets. She wore black ops gear, tactical webbing loaded with equipment. Her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid. Blood streaked her left arm. She'd been in combat before the teleportation. Their eyes met. Recognition sparked, complicated by years of history neither had fully resolved. Gwen. Kai's voice was flat, professional. The gun didn't lower. You responsible for this? Do I look like I know what's happening? Mana still crackled around Gwen's hands. I was in my apartment. You. Inkerseen skirmish on the corrosion border. We were winning. Then, Kai gestured sharply at their surroundings. This. More light. More arrivals. Julie Yamamoto appeared next, wearing pajamas and an expression of pure confusion. Ship, grown massive now, the size of a small car, materialized beside her, already flowing into defensive armor around his partner. Julie's eyes went wide as she took in Gwen and Kai, but before any of them could speak, Ester coalesced from thermal energy, her crystalline kraho form refracting the ambient light into rainbow patterns. She looked around with large, curious eyes, head tilting in that peculiarly alien gesture of assessment. This is not the laboratory, she observed in her precise, slightly formal English. Most unexpected development. Looma Red Wind arrived in a crouch, 4 muscular arms already clenched into fists. The Tetraman warrior's eyes blazed as she scanned for enemies, and finding none. Her gaze settled on the other women with obvious confusion. What trickery is this? I was in the arena, mid-combat. Her booming voice echoed off the impossible walls. My opponent will think I fled. This is dishonor. Princess Attea materialized with considerably more composure, though her hand rested on her sidearm and her amphibian features twisted into an expression of cold calculation. Despite being pulled from somewhere across the galaxy, she looked perfectly composed in her imperial regalia. Interesting. Her tone dripped aristocratic disdain. An ambush sophisticated enough to bypass Incursine security protocols. Someone dies for this. Charmcaster, Hope, she'd been calling herself lately, appeared in a swirl of dark energy that she'd clearly triggered herself, managing to ride the teleportation spell rather than be victimized by it. Her white hair whipped around her face as magical energy crackled from her fingertips, violet eyes scanning the environment with professional paranoia. Interdimensional kidnapping. Bold. Stupid, but bold. She noticed the others, and her expression cycled through surprise, suspicion, and grim understanding. Of course, all of us should have seen this coming. Seen what coming? Julie demanded, ship's armor retracting slightly as she recognized the assembled group. Does someone want to explain why I was pulled out of my bed at, wait, what time is it? Time is contextual here, came a new voice, and Gwen's analytical mind registered it as female, young, but with an odd harmonic quality that suggested synthetic origin. We exist in a pocket dimension where temporal progression occurs at a different rate than baseline reality. For reference, approximately 2.3 seconds have elapsed in the external universe since your arrivals. The final figure materialized, and Gwen felt her magical senses twinge with recognition. Eunice, the living Omnitrix, wearing her preferred human form but with her eyes displaying that telltale gleam of processing power that no organic being could match. Hello, Eunice said with a small, polite smile. I apologize for the disorientation. The summoning was necessary but, I understand, quite jarring. Summoning. Kai's voice went dangerously quiet, the gun now pointed at Eunice. You did this. Not I specifically. The absolute Omnitrix initiated the quantum entanglement and executed the harmonic convergence protocol. I am experiencing the effects as much as you, though my nature allows me to interface with the mechanism more directly. Eunice gestured around them. We are inside the Nexus, a diamond's ional pocket created by the device to facilitate initial bonding. And we are here because of me. Gwen's heart stopped. Ben materialized at the chamber's center, and her breath caught for reasons she refused to examine. He looked different, not physically, though yes, 5 years had added muscle and height and carved away the last softness of adolescence. The difference was in his bearing. The way he stood, utterly still, comfortable in his own skin in a way the younger Ben had never been. Power radiated from him like heat from a star, and on his wrist, an Omnitrix unlike any Gwen had ever seen. The device pulsed with light that seemed to resonate in her chest, in her mana, in places deeper than flesh. Ben. Julie's voice broke first, small and confused. What's going on? Ben's green eyes, when had they become so intense, swept across all 8 women. Gwen watched him catalog details with trained efficiency. Kai's injury, Charmcaster's defensive posture, Looma's barely restrained aggression. Attea's cold calculation. Reading them, understanding them, the way he'd learned to read battlefields and tactical situations. I'm sorry, he said, and Gwen heard genuine anguish beneath the words. I'm so sorry. You all deserved better than this. Tennyson. Attea's voice cracked like a whip. Explain. Now. In small words, assuming I don't know anything, and quickly before ECIDE that regicide is an acceptable response to kidnapping. Despite everything, Ben smiled slightly. You're not going to kill me, Attea. You want to know what's happening too badly. Presume to tell me what I want again. And I'll test that theory. Everyone, please. Eunice stepped forward, her processing power clearly working overtime. Allow me to provide context. Ben activated the absolute Omnitrix 27 seconds ago. The device initiated a royal bond protocol, identifying 8 individuals across the galaxy whose life frequencies harmonize with Ben's at a quantum level. U8. The bonds create a metaphysical connection that, when fully developed, will generate enough harmonic energy to power the absolute Omnitrix's reality stabilization functions. Silence. Then, you're saying we're soulmates? Julie's voice was very small. All of us, with Ben. The concept of soulmates is a romantic oversimplification, but functionally accurate, Eunice confirmed. The bonds indicate deep compatibility across multiple vectors: emotional, intellectual, tactical, and yes, romantic. They create the potential for profound connection, but they don't force feelings. The choice of how to develop the relationship remains yours. Bullshit. Kai's flat declaration cut through the crystalline air. You pulled us across the galaxy, dumped us in a pocket dimension, and you're claiming we have a choice. You do. Ben's voice was quiet but absolute. I won't let this be forced. Any of this. You want to leave right now, we'll find a way. I don't care what the device says is necessary. I'm not going to. He stopped. Swallowed hard. I've heard enough people in the name of saving the universe. I'm not adding you to that list. Gwen's analytical mind was working frantically, pulling together data points. Royal bonds, harmonic energy, reality stabilization, the continuum cascade, she said suddenly. This is about the cascade, isn't it? The dimensional degradation we've been tracking. Ben's eyes met hers, and Gwen felt something electric snap between them. The bond, she realized. Already there, gossamer thin but growing stronger by the second. She could feel him at the edge of her consciousness. A presence that was familiar and foreign all at once. It's a weapon, Ben said. Something's using the cascade to unwrite reality. The absolute Omnitrix can stop it, but only if powered by a royal bond. He gestured helplessly at the assembled women. By us, Charmcaster finished, her voice bitter. Of course, why not? Let's add cosmic battery to my ray. Samay right after. Villain and reformed villain who nobody trusts. I trust you, Ben said simply. Why do you think you're here? That stopped her. Charmcaster's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You don't even know me. Not really. I know you've spent 3 years rebuilding Legerdemain. I know you turned down a dozen offers of power to stay on the path you chose. I know that when those Fuji's from the null void needed shelter, you opened your realm even though it left you vulnerable. Ben's voice was gentle but firm. You're here because you're exactly who we need. All of you are. Stop. Looma's voice boomed, all 4 hands raised in a gesture of negation. You speak of bonds and harmony and need, but these are words. A warrior knows truth through test of combat, not pretty speeches in crystal caves. Then test me. Ben spread his arms. Whatever proof you need, I'll provide it. But I'm telling you the truth, all of you. The universe is ending. This is the only way to stop it. And I will not force you to be part of it if you don't choose it freely. Attea laughed, short and sharp. How magnanimous. Tell me, Tennyson, if we refuse, does reality collapse? Then I find another way. There is no other way. Even I can extrapolate that much. The Inkersine princess circled him, amphibian eyes calculating. You're offering us the illusion of choice. Accept the bond and save existence. Or refuse and bear responsibility for cosmic genocide. Quite the tactical position. It's not an illusion. Ben turned to track her movement. I've done impossible things before. I'll do them again if I have to. Quote, you cannot solve everything alone. Ester's quiet observation cut through the tension. This is what the bond represents, yes. Learning to share burden instead of carrying alone. Is universal truth, not only human. Ben's shoulders sagged slightly, and Gwen saw the weight he carried. Had always carried. The Omnitrix, any version, had been both gift and curse. The power to save everyone. And the responsibility to try. I'm so tired of asking people to sacrifice for my missions, Ben said quietly. I wanted this choice to be different. To be clean. But you're right, all of you. It's the universe or the bond. I can dress it up in pretty words about choice and agency, but at the end of the day, I'm asking you to save everything by binding yourselves to me. His eyes found each of theirs in turn. So I'm asking. Not the Omnitrix, not destiny, not the universe. Me. I'm asking if you'll help me. If you'll let me try to earn this bond instead of just accepting it as cosmic inevitability. The crystalline chamber held its breath. Julie spoke first, stepping forward with ship flowing into a supportive exosuit around her limbs. You know I'm in. You should have just called. This isn't a normal mission, Jules. I know what it is. She smiled, sad and understanding. We'll figure out the complicated parts. We always do. Esther approached next, her thermal biology making the air shimmer around her. My people fled our dying world because we did not work together in time. I will not make same mistake. You have my support. Looma crashed forward, all four fists thumping her chest in a Tetraman salute. Ha! A warrior who admits fear, admits weakness, admits need for aid. This is true strength. I accept your challenge, Ben Tennyson. We shall forge this bond in combat and glory. I feel obligated to point out, Eunice said carefully, that I am already constructed from Omnitrix technology. My entire existence is entangled with Ben's on a fundamental level, so my agreement is perhaps redundant, but I choose to participate consciously, with intention. If that distinction matters, it matters, Ben said softly. Thank you. 4 down. 4 undecided. Gwen felt the weight of her own hesitation, the tangled knot of feelings she'd been deliberately not examining. This was Ben, her cousin, her partner, her best friend. The bond hummed between them, promising something deeper, and wasn't that the problem? She'd spent years carefully maintaining the boundary between family and other. Now the universe itself was saying that boundary was artificial. Her brain screamed complications. Her magic recognized resonance. I need time, she heard herself say. To process. To understand the metaphysical implications. To overthink yourself into paralysis. Charmcaster's voice held dark amusement. Please. I can feel the bond from here, Gwen. It's practically screaming compatibility. You're hesitating because it's Ben, and that's complicated. But the universe apparently doesn't care about your hang-ups. Like you're one to talk about hesitation. Oh, I'm absolutely a hypocrite. Charmcaster's smile was sharp, which is why I know what I'm looking at. You want this. You're just afraid of wanting it. Gwen's mana flared. You don't know. I know that I've spent years alone, convinced I didn't deserve connection. I know had it looks like when someone offers genuine acceptance and your brain tells you it's a trick. Charmcaster turned to Ben, and her expression shifted into something vulnerable. You meant what you said. About trusting me, every word. Then you're either a fool or... She paused, considering. Or you see something I don't. Fine, I'll stay. I'll try. But I'm not promising sunshine and rainbows, Tennyson. I'm still figuring out how to be someone worth trusting. You already are, Ben said simply. 6. 2 remaining. Kai stood like a statue, plasma pistol finally lowered but her expression carved from stone. I won't be some mystical destiny prize. I've fought too hard for my independence to surrender it to cosmic matchmaking. I'm not asking you to surrender anything, Ben replied. I'm asking you to choose partnership. There's a difference, is there? Because from where I'm standing, this bond is going to tangle us together whether we like it or not. Our minds, our souls, our futures. That's not partnership, that's invasion. The honesty struck like a physical blow. Gwen watched Ben absorb it, saw the pain flicker across his features before he nodded slowly. You're right, it is invasive. I hate that part too. His voice steadied. But Kai, I've watched you build an entire plumber division from scratch. I've seen you negotiate peace between species that have been at war for generations. You're one of the most fiercely independent people I know, and you've achieved incredible things precisely because you choose your battles and your allies carefully. He met her eyes. So I'm asking, will you choose this? Not because destiny demands it, but because together we might be able to save everything you've built, everything you've fought for. Kai was silent for a long moment. Her hand flexed on her pistol grip, a nervous tell she probably didn't realize she had. If I do this, the bond doesn't own me. I'm still my own person. Still my own commander. This is a tactical alliance, Tennyson. Nothing more until I decide otherwise. Understood completely. And if you try any mystical bonding bullshit to influence my thoughts or feelings, I'll shoot you. Fair. Kai nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then we have a mission. Let's execute. 7. All eyes turned to Attea. The Inkersine princess stood apart, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Of all of them, she had the most reason to refuse. Former enemy, reformed through necessity rather than moral awakening, ruling an empire that would see this bond as weakness or conspiracy. An interesting tactical scenario, she mused. Refuse, and I'm responsible for cosmic annihilation. Accept, and I bind myself to my former nemesis in a way that could be exploited by my political enemies. Quite the dilemma. You could look at it another way. Ben said. Oh, do enlighten me. You could see it as the ultimate power play. The Inkersine Empire, positioned at the heart of the coalition that saved reality itself. Your political enemies couldn't touch you. You'd have cosmic authority backing your throne. Attea's eyes narrowed. You're attempting to manipulate me. I'm speaking your language. There's a difference. Is there? She echoed Kai's question, but with a calculating edge. You know, I've spent 3 years consolidating power, reforming an empire built on conquest into something approaching functional governance. It's exhausting. Thankless. I've survived 17 assassination attempts and crushed 12 coups. She circled closer. And despite all of that, despite building something that actually works, I'm still the villain in most species' narratives. The Inkersine who can't be trusted. I trust you to do what's necessary, Ben said. That's why you're here. What's necessary? Attea repeated softly. How very diplomatic. Not, what's right, or, what's good. What's necessary. She stopped directly in front of him. You understand me better than I expected, Tennyson. That's either promising or terrifying. Can it be both? She laughed, genuine and surprised. Fine. You want an empire's resources at your disposal. You want political connections spanning half the galaxy. You want someone who knows how to make the hard calls when your heroic morality gets in the way. She extended her hand. You have them. But understand, I'm not doing this for destiny or bonds or saving the universe. I'm doing this because an Inkersine Empress protects her assets, and reality happens to be among them. Ben took her hand. Whatever your reasons, I'm glad you're here. We'll see if you street. I'll feel that way when I inevitably prioritize empire over sentiment. I'll take that bet. 8. All of them. Against all odds, all of them had chosen to stay. Gwen felt the bond's pulse, thrumming through the chamber like a struck chord. Not fully formed yet, Eunice had called this the initial convergence, but present. Growing. 8 different harmonic frequencies beginning to align with Ben's, and through him, with each other. She could feel them, distantly. Julie's steady warmth. Kai's sharp focus. Ester's curious wonder. Looma's burning intensity. Attea's cold calculation. Charmcaster's guarded vulnerability. Eunice's processed affection. And Ben at the center, the sun they orbited, burning with determination and guilt and hope and fear and power that resonated in Gwen's bones. So, Julie said into the weighted silence. What happens now? Eunice stepped forward, her eyes momentarily flashing with data processing. The bonds are established but unstable. To stabilize them and unload the absolute Omnitrix's full capabilities, we need to achieve harmonic resonance. This requires time, trust, and genuine emotional connection. How much time? Kai asked. Variable based on individual relationship development. Theoretical minimum. Several weeks. More realistic estimate. Months. We don't have months, Gwen interjected. If the cascade is as advanced as the data suggests. RTY 7 days until critical cascade failure, Eunice confirmed. After which reality degradation becomes irreversible. Then we have a deadline. Attea's tactical mind was clearly engaged. We need a base of operations, resources, intelligence on the cascade's origin, and a training regimen to develop these bonds under combat conditions. Sitting in a crystal pocket dimension having feelings at each other won't be sufficient. Agreed, Kai said, and Gwen noted the instant tactical rapport between the two warriors. We need structure, mission parameters, clear objectives. We also need to understand each other, Julie countered. If the bonds require genuine connection, we can't just treat this like a military operation. We're people, not tactical assets. We can be both, Looma rumbled. Warriors know that the strongest battle formations are forged through shared combat and shared life. We will fight together and live together, and from this, bonds will grow. Or we'll kill each other, Charmcaster muttered. 8 women with wildly different backgrounds and abilities, all cosmically tied to the same man. This definitely won't create any interpersonal conflict. Conflict can be productive if managed properly. Ester observed. Scientific principle. Diverse perspectives yield innovative solutions. Perhaps interpersonal friction will strengthen bonds rather than weaken them. That's optimistic, Gwen said. I am Kraho. We are naturally thermal optimists. Despite everything, Ben laughed. The sound broke some of the tension, and Gwen saw shoulders relax fractionally around the circle. Okay, first things first. We get out of the Nexus, establish a base, and start figuring out how to actually work together. Eunice, can you interface with the absolute Omnitrix? Get us somewhere secure. Eunice's eyes flashed. The plumber station GAMMA-7 is currently decommissioned but functional. Orbiting the binary star system of Koros Tarn, isolated enough for privacy but say enough to major trade routes for supply access. I can establish a transport corridor from the Nexus. Do it. Light gathered, and Gwen felt the dimensional walls thinning. Before the transport engaged, Ben's voice cut through. One more thing. All of you, thank you. For choosing this. For trusting me, or at least trusting the mission. I know it's not easy, and I know it's going to get harder. But I promise you, I'll do everything I can to earn this bond. To be worthy of it. Save the speeches, Tennyson, Attea said, but not unkindly. Show us through action. That's the plan. The Nexus dissolved into light, and reality reassembled itself around a decommissioned plumber station floating in the black ocean of space. Through the viewports, binary stars painted the darkness in orange and blue, casting everything in surreal dual-toned shadows. 8 women and 1 man, bound by cosmic necessity and tentative choice, standing in a corridor that smelled of recycled air and ozone. Welcome to your new home, Ben said wryly. It's not much, but... The station shuddered. Alarms screamed to life. And through the viewport, space itself began to tear. The continuum cascade had found them. Gwen's mana flared instinctively, combat reflexes engaging before conscious thought. Beside her, Kai's weapon was already tracking, Looma's fists clenched, Attea barking orders in Incursine to someone who wasn't there. Julie's ship armor deploying, Ester's thermal field spiking, Charmcaster's magic crackling, Eunice's eyes processing data at inhuman speeds. And Ben, the absolute Omnitrix blazing green gold on his wrist. Stepping forward to face the tear in reality with the calm of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Okay, he said, voice steady despite the station's shaking. Guess we're starting with a combat trial. Everyone who has ranged capabilities, form up on the left. Melee specialists, right flank. Gwen, Charmcaster, can you shield the station's critical systems? Orders. Clear, concise. Leveraging their strengths. Gwen moved before questioning, her body remembering years of fighting beside Ben, trusting his tactical assessment. Charmcaster hesitated a half-second longer but followed. And together they began weaving protective enchantments over the station's life support and power core. Through the viewport, something emerged from the cascade tier. Not a ship, not a creature, a wrongness given form, a piece of anti-reality that unraveled everything it touched. Quantum foam boiled in its wake, probabilities collapsing into impossible configurations. What are we looking at? Kai demanded, her tactical scanner screaming errors. Cascade manifestation, Eunice reported. A localized reality erosion event. If it makes contact with the station, we'll be unwritten from existence retroactively. So don't let it touch us. Got it. Kai's plasma fire lanced out, and impossibly, struck true. The manifestation recoiled, though whether from damage or surprise was unclear. It can be hurt, Looma roared triumphantly. Then it can be destroyed. She grabbed a support beam, tore it free with casual Tetraman strength, and hurled it like a javelin. The metal street rucked the manifestation and ceased to exist mid-flight, but the action drove it back another few meters. Attea was at a terminal, fingers flying across alien controls. The station's defensive grid is offline. Give me 30 seconds and I can restore partial functionality. You have 20, Ben said, the absolute Omnitrix glowing brighter. After that, I'm going out there. Unadvisable, Eunice started. Don't care. I'm not letting that thing destroy everything we just. Ben stopped. Gwen felt it through the bond. Realization, wonder, hope. Wait, the bonds. Can you feel it? Gwen could. Distantly, like a song just below hearing. 8 different frequencies pulsing in rough synchronization. Not harmonized yet, but beginning to align. The absolute Omnitrix responds to harmonic input, Eunice said. Understanding dawning in her voice. If we can achieve even partial resonance, it would amplify. Then let's resonate, Julie said. How? Shared purpose, Ester suggested. We all desire same outcome. Protect station, survive. Stop threat. Focus on commonality. It sounded insane. Metaphysical nonsense. But Gwen's magical training had taught her that intention shaped reality, and her scientific training had taught her that quantum systems responded to observation. This was both and neither. She closed her eyes, felt for the bond, there, gossamer thin but real. Followed it to Ben, to the absolute Omnitrix. To the 7 other women connected through the same cosmic web. Pushed her intention along those connections. Protect. Survive. Together. The bonds sang. Light exploded from the absolute Omnitrix. Green, gold, magenta, blue, red, violet, white, silver, 8 colors flowing together into something that had no name. Ben gasped, and Gwen felt his shock, his awe, his sudden access to power that dwarfed anything the standard Omnitrix had ever provided. Okay, Ben breathed. Okay, I can work with this. He slammed his hand down on the absolute Omnitrix. The transformation was unlike anything Gwen had ever witnessed. Not the usual green flash and restructuring, but an evolution. Ben's form shifted, grew, became something that combined aspects of multiple aliens she recognized. Forearms strength, XLR8's speed. Jetray's flight capability, Brainstorm's intellect, but transcended all of them. A fusion form, she realized. The absolute Omnitrix wasn't limited to single transformations. And through the bonds, they all felt it. His power, his confidence, his absolute certainty that he could stop the threat. The fusion form burst through the station's airlock, crossing the Dista. NCE to the Cascade manifestation in a heartbeat. Physical strength met metaphysical wrongness, and for a moment, existence held its breath. Then Ben struck, and the manifestation shattered. Not Destro. Yet, Gwen's magical senses told her it had been sealed, compressed, forced back through the tear it had emerged from. Ben's fusion form moved with impossible grace, alien abilities combining in ways that shouldn't work but did. And everywhere he touched the cascade tear, reality stabilized. 30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds of godlike power, and the threat was contained. Ben returned through the airlock. The transformation fading as he touched down on the station's deck. He stumbled, and Julie was there instantly, ship's armor supporting him. Gwen moved to his other side on instinct. Feeling through the bond that he'd overtaxed himself, burned through energy reserves that would take time to replenish. That was incredible, Julie whispered. That was terrifying, Kai corrected. The power scale on that transformation was exactly what we'll need, Attea finished. And that was partial resonance. Imagine what full harmonic unity would enable. Looma laughed, booming and joyful. Yes, this is warriors' bond, sharing strength, achieving victory together. Charmcaster was staring at her hands, where residual energy still crackled. I felt it, his power, but also, all of you. Every bond, feeding into the Omnitrix, amplifying the output. Her expression was wondering. I've chased power my entire life, and this is beyond anything I imagined. It's not just power, Eunice said quietly. It's connection. The absolute Omnitrix doesn't simply access alien DNA, it channels the harmonic resonance of bonded souls. What you felt was trust made tangible. Gwen met Ben's eyes and saw her own realization reflected there. This wasn't just about saving the universe. This was about becoming something greater than the sum of their parts. 8 individuals and 1 catalyst. Forging a bond that could reshape reality itself. So, Ben said, still leaning heavily on Julie and Gwen. Anyone still think this was a bad idea? Terrible idea, Kai said. Worst possible plan, Attea agreed. Fraught with complications, Gwen added. And yet, Ester observed, it appears to be working. Silence settled over them, broken only by the station's systems humming back to full functionality. 8 women and 1 man, bound by cosmic necessity and growing choice, standing in a corridor painted in binary starlight. 46 days, Charmcaster said. We have 46 days to achieve full harmonic resonance and save reality. Then we'd better get started, Julie said. Ben smiled, tired and genuine and full of the reckless hope that had defined him since he was 10 years old. Together, and 8 voices, different in tone and inflection and language and culture, answered as one. Together, the bonds pulsed, harmonics aligning just a fraction more, and in the heart of the absolute Omnitrix. Something ancient and powerful recognized what was being forged. Not just a team, not just allies, a royal harem, chosen by the universe and choosing each other in return. The real work was just beginning. Chapter 2. Fractured Harmonies. Kai Green had forgotten what it felt like to miss. The plasma bolt should have vaporized the hovering target, a mechamorph drone programmed W. ITH evasive patterns that would challenge a level 7 plumber marksman. Should have. Instead, the shot veered 3 degrees left at the last possible microsecond, as if reality itself had reached out and nudged the trajectory off course. Damn it. Kai didn't lower her weapon, recalibrating her grip and firing again. Same result. The bolt curved around the drone like water around a stone. Your accuracy is not the issue. Eunice's voice came from the observation deck above the training hall, calm and analytical. The cascade distortions are intensifying. Localized probability fields are affecting ballistic trajectories within a 3-meter radius of manifestation points. Your shots are perfectly aimed. Physics is simply refusing to cooperate. Then what's the point of training? Kai holster. D her weapon with more force than necessary, frustration bleeding through her normally iron control. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of living on this refurbished station, training until her muscles screamed. Feeling the bond grow stronger whether she wanted it or not. 3 weeks of reality breaking down in increasingly creative ways. The point, came Gwen's voice from across the training hall, WHER. She stood with hands wreathed in magenta energy, is that we adapt. Physics won't cooperate. Fine, we stop relying on physics alone. Kai turned to find Gwen walking toward her, the anodite's mana flickering with controlled power. Over the past weeks, Kai had watched Gwen's magical abilities grow exponentially, fed by the harmonic resonance they were all generating. It was impressive, also deeply annoying. Some of us don't have magic superpowers, Kai said flatly. No, but you're bonded to people who do. Watch. Gwen extended her hand, mana flowing out in a barely visible stream that wrapped around Kai's holstered plasma pistol. Draw and fire. Don't think, just move. Instinct overrode questions. Kai's hand flashed to her weapon, drew, fired in one smooth motion. The bolt flew true. No, truer than true. It curved toward the drone with impossible precision, striking dead center. Kai stared at the dissolved target, then at her weapon, then at Gwen. What did you do? I didn't. We did. The bond lets us share more than feelings. Gwen's expression was complicated, academic curiosity warring with something softer. I channeled mana through our connection, just a trace amount. You accessed it unconsciously, used it to stabilize the probability field around your shot. Magic-enhanced marksmanship. I don't want magic. The words came out harsher than Kai intended. I've built my entire career on skill. Not supernatural shortcuts. It's not a shortcut. It's a resource. Gwen's voice sharpened. We don't have time for pride, Kai. The cascade is escalating. If we're going to retrieve the harmonic crystals before reality collapses completely, we need to use every advantage available. The harmonic crystals. Eunice had identified them 4 days ago, 8 artifacts scattered across the galaxy. Each one a solidified fragment of pure resonance frequency. Individually, they were powerful. Combined and integrated with the absolute Omnitrix, they would stabilize the royal bonds. Enough to unlock the device's reality anchoring capabilities. Also, they were hidden in the most dangerous, politically complicated, or outright insane locations imaginable. Because of course they were. Kai was about to respond when the station's intercom crackled to life. Ben's voice, steady and commanding, everyone to the briefing room. We've confirmed the crystal locations. Time to move. The briefing room had been Attea's project. The Inkersine Empress had taken one look at the station's original command center, a utilitarian plumber design prioritizing function over form, and declared it tactically insufficient for coordinated operations. 3 days later, she'd transformed it into something that would have impressed a military strategist from any species. Holographic displays floated throughout the space, showing real-time data on cascade progression, galactic political situations, and the team's individual biometric readings. The central table was a masterwork of Galvan engineering and Inkersine tactical doctrine, capable of projecting three-dimensional battlefields at any scale. Ben stood at the table's head, the absolute Omnitrix casting green-gold light across his features. He looked tired. They all did, but his eyes held that focused intensity that meant he'd spent the night planning instead of sleeping. Around the table, Julie, ship flowing restlessly around her shoulders in his compact form. Looma, too large for the chairs, standing with arms crossed. Ester, her crystalline form refracting the holographic light into rainbow patterns. Charmcaster, leaning against the far wall with studied casualness that didn't hide her attention. Attea, already seated at Ben's right in what had become her customary position. Eunice, interfacing directly with the table's systems, her eyes displaying scrolling data. Gwen and Kai entered last, taking positions on opposite sides of the table. "Thank you for coming quickly," Ben began, and Kai noted the diplomatic phrasing. Not an order. Despite his position as their de facto leader, always asking, always conscious of their agency, it was simultaneously admirable and irritating. "Eunice, if you would." Eunice's eyes flashed, and the central display shifted. 8 points of light appeared on a galactic map, scattered across impossible distances. "The harmonic crystals," Eunice explained, her voice taking on the lecturing quality that emerged when she was processing complex data. "Each one resonates at a specific frequency corresponding to one of our bonds. To retrieve them safely, each crystal requires the presence of its corresponding bonded individual, plus support personnel for tactical situations." "Let me guess," Charmcaster said dryly. "They're all in extremely dangerous locations." "Affirmative." Location. S were selected by the crystals themselves upon formation. They manifested in sites of significant metaphysical resonance, which correlates strongly with danger, political complexity, or environmental hostility. Eunice highlighted the first location. Crystal 1. Anodisian Nexus, homeworld of the Anodites. Corresponding bond. Gwen. The hologram showed a world that wasn't quite physical, existing partially in a higher dimensional state. Beautiful and utterly alien. "Of course it's on the Anodite homeworld," Gwen muttered. "Because visiting my supremely judgmental extended family wasn't already on my list of dreaded activities." Crystal 2, Eunice continued, highlighting the next point. Inkersine Imperial Palace, currently hosting the Galactic Concordat Summit. Corresponding bond. Attea. Attea's expression remained neutral, but Kai caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "The summit I was attending when I was pulled away 3 weeks ago." "Excellent. My political rivals have certainly not spent that time consolidating power against me." Crystal 3. Tetraman Prime, the grand arena during the Festival of Conquest. Corresponding bond. Looma. Ha. Looma's booming laugh shook the room. "A crystal manifests in the most sacred arena of my people, during our greatest celebration. The ancestors smile upon this quest." Crystal 4. Kraho Refuge Station Delta, currently experiencing catastrophic thermal core destabilization. Corresponding bond. Ester. Ester's large eyes widened with distress. "The refuge station, but that houses 3,000 of my people, survivors from colony failures. If the core destabilizes, then we don't let it," Ben said firmly. "That's why we're going." Kai watched the interplay, noting how naturally Ben positioned challenges as solvable problems rather than threats. Leadership through confidence. It was effective, even if she'd never admit it aloud. Crystal 5, Eunice said. "The Null Void Ship Graveyard, Grid Section 47 Theta." Corresponding bond. Julie. Julie's hand went to Ship, who chittered nervously. "The graveyard where ship species goes to end. You want me to go there?" "I know it's asking a lot," Ben said gently. "Everything about this is asking a lot." But Julie's voice was steady. "I'll do it, Ship and I together." Crystal 6. Legerdemain's Throne Chamber, currently contested between 3 rival factions. Corresponding bond. Charmcaster. Charmcaster pushed off from the wall, suddenly tense. The throne room. They're fighting over Darkstar's old seat. Information suggests the power vacuum you left when you abdicated has created significant instability, Eunice confirmed. I didn't abdicate. I refused to claim it in the first place. Charmcaster's hands crackled with violet energy. There's a difference. A distinction your people apparently don't appreciate, Attea observed. Fascinating how nobility operates across species. The powerful are expected to rule, regardless of personal preference. Crystal 7. Proto-tool manufacturing complex, currently occupied by rogue AI defense systems. Corresponding bond. Eunice. Eunice's expression flickered, the closest she came to showing distress. The facility where I was constructed. Records indicate it was abandoned after me. We'll be careful, Ben promised. Crystal 8. Earth, specifically the Cascade incursion point above Bellwood. Corresponding bond. Kai. Every eye turned to Kai. She kept her expression neutral, but internally, her mind was racing. Bellwood. Home. The Cascade was directly threatening her home. When? She asked, voice clipped. The incursion manifested 47 hours ago. Plumbers have evacuated a 3-mile radius, but the distortion is expanding. Current projections suggest total city erasure within 5 days. 5 days. Her home would be gone in 5 days. Then we prioritize that one, Kai said flatly. We prioritize all of them simultaneously. Ben's hand moved across the display, and the 8 points began pulsing in synchronized rhythm. Eunice confirmed that the crystals are quantum entangled. If we retrieve them sequentially, each retrieval will make the remaining crystals phase deeper into their locations, literally retreating from our reality. We need to grab all 8 within the same 6-hour window. Silence as the implications settled. You're proposing we split into 8 separate teams, Attea said slowly. Across the galaxy, operating simultaneously with zero backup. Not zero backup. We have each other. Ben touched the absolute Omnitrix. The bonds are strong enough now for basic communication and emotional sensing across galactic distances. We can coordinate in real time. This is insane, Gwen said. This is necessary, Ben countered. I don't like it either. But the Cascade is escalating faster than predicted. We're out of time for careful, sequential operations. Then we pair up, Julie said. Each bonded individual with a partner. Better odds than going solo. Agreed. Ben's fingers moved, reorganizing the display. Gwen and Charmcaster, you're both magical specialists. Pair up for the Anodite homeworld. Your combined skills give you the best chance against metaphysical threats. Kai watched Gwen and Charmcaster exchange glances, their historical rivalry still simmering beneath the tentative alliance. This would be interesting. Attea and Kai, Ben continued. The Concordat Summit is equal parts political and tactical threat. Attea knows the players, Kai knows plumber protocols. You complement each other. Attea's smile was sharp. How diplomatic. Pairing the 2 most emotionally constipated warriors in the room. I'm not emotionally constipated, Kai said. You've spoken approximately 300 words total in 3 weeks. And 200 of them were tactical assessments. You're the definition of emotionally constipated. Functionality over sentiment is not a character flaw. It is when you're supposed to be forming emotional bonds. Ladies, Ben interrupted, save the sparring for the mission. Julie and Eunice, the Null Void Graveyard and the Prototool facility are both technology-focused challenges. Ship's abilities and Eunice's interface capabilities make you the logical team. Julie nodded, Ship forming into a supportive exosuit around her frame. Eunice's processing eyes flickered with what might have been gratitude. Ester and Looma, Ben said. The thermal core destabilization requires Ester's expertise, but the refuge station is in contested space. Looma's combat capabilities provide security while Ester works. A scientist and a warrior. Looma thumped her chest enthusiastically. Together we shall achieve glory and preserve the innocent. Ester's gentle smile suggested she found Looma's enthusiasm endearing rather than overwhelming. I am honored to fight beside you, Looma Red Wind. Which leaves Bellwood for you, Gwen said to Ben. Alone. Someone needs to coordinate from a central position. The absolute Omnitrix can maintain bond connections more effectively if I'm actively channeling. Ben's explanation was smooth, practiced. Also transparently a lie. You're planning to engage the cascade manifestation directly, Kai said. Not a question. Ben met her eyes, and through the bond, Kai felt his determination. His need to protect Earth personally. His guilt over not being there when the incursion began. I'm the only one who can transform, Ben said simply. The cascade manifestation over Bellwood is the largest yet recorded. It's my responsibility. Alone, Gwen repeated, and Kai heard the fear beneath her anger. I've fought alone before. You had the team as backup. Always. I'll have you as backup now. Just distributed. Ben's smile didn't reach his eyes. Trust me. The question hung in the air, weighted with 3 weeks of growing bonds, shared training, tentative connection. Kai felt the resonance through her link. They all did. Ben asking them to trust him. To let him carry this burden while they carried theirs. It should have felt manipulative. Somehow, it just felt honest. 6 hours, Attea said, breaking the silence. Retrieve the crystals. Rendezvous at predetermined coordinates, integrate them with the absolute Omnitrix. Simple enough in theory. Theory and practice have a complicated relationship in my experience, Charmcaster observed. Then we'd better prepare for complications. Ben's hand swept across the display. We depart in 2 hours. Pack for combat, diplomacy, and everything in between. And everyone. His eyes found each of theirs in turn. Come back, all of you. We don't leave people behind. The meeting dissolved into preparation flurry. Kai lingered as the others dispersed, watching Ben stare at the hologram of Bellwood. The cascade tear visible as a wound in reality above his hometown. You're going to do something stupid, she said. Ben didn't look away from the display. Probably. At least you're honest about it. I've found honesty works better than tactical deflection. Usually. Now he did turn, and Kai was struck again by how much older he looked than his 22 years. The weight of the Omnitrix, the weight of the bonds. The weight of trying to save everyone while keeping them safe from the burden. Kai, I need you to promise me something. Depends on what it is. If things go wrong, if the cascade can't be stopped, get everyone out. You're the best tactical mind we have after Attea. You know how to make the hard calls. If I fail, you lead the retreat. Kai's jaw tightened. You don't fail, Tennyson. It's annoyingly consistent. There's a first time for everything. Not today. She turned to leave, paused at the doorway. And for the record, you're not alone in this fight. None of us are. That's the whole point of the bonds, isn't it? Shared burden, shared strength. She glanced back. So don't you dare try to be the solo hero. It's tactically inefficient and emotionally idiotic. Ben's surprised laugh followed her into the corridor. ANODYSIAN Nexus, Gwen and Charmcaster. The Anodite homeworld didn't exist in 3 dimensions so much as it suggested them politely. Gwen felt her physical form destabilize the moment they phased through the dimensional barrier, her Anodite heritage surging to the surface. Mana flooded her system, pure and overwhelming, and for a dizzying moment she was more energy than matter. Breathe, Charmcaster's voice cut through the disorientation. A hand, still physical, grounded in Legerdemain's different magical tradition, gripped Gwen's arm. Don't let it consume you. You're still you, just more. Gwen focused, pulled herself back to coherence. Her form stabilized into her anodite state, energy given shape by will, magenta lie. Chi flowing where flesh and blood had been. Beside her, Charmcaster remained stubbornly physical, her own magic creating a bubble of Legerdemain physics around her body. You could transform too, Gwen said, her voice resonating with harmonic overtones that hadn't been there before. Your magical lineage is strong enough. I spent too many years being what others wanted me to be. This form is mine. I'm keeping it. Charmcaster's violet eyes scanned their surroundings with professional paranoia. So this is where the mighty Anodites live. It's aggressively sparkly. Gwen couldn't argue. The Nexus sprawled before them in impossible architecture, structures woven from pure mana, constantly shifting and reforming. Anodites drifted through the space like living auroras, their forms ranging barely humanoid to abstract concepts given consciousness. And every single one of them was staring. Gwen Tennyson. The voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere, and Gwen's mana pulsed with involuntary recognition. You return to us transformed. Bonded. entangled with lesser beings. Verdona materialized before them, Gwen's grandmother in anodite form. Vast, powerful, radiating disapproval like heat from a star. Grandmother. Gwen kept her voice neutral, professional. I'm here for the harmonic crystal. Not for a family reunion. The crystal that manifested in our sacred chamber, radiating frequencies that disrupt our meditation. The crystal that exists because you chose to bind yourself to 8 other beings, including a human male who wears alien DNA like a costume. Verdona's form, pulsed with colors that meant anger in anodite body language. You have brought shame to our lineage. Charmcaster laughed, short and sharp. Oh good, judgmental family. My favorite. Verdona's attention shifted, and the pressure of her regard made Charmcaster's protective bubble flicker. The dark sorceress. The one who has murdered, enslaved, conquered. You stand beside my granddaughter as an equal. I stand beside her as a partner. Charmcaster corrected, her voice cold. And my past is exactly that, past. But I don't expect you to understand. Beings of pure energy tend to forget what it's like to claw your way out of darkness when you've never experienced night. You dare. Grandmother. Enough. Gwen stepped between them, mana flaring. I didn't come here for approval. I came for the crystal. Give it to us, or we'll take it, your choice. Silence rippled across the nexus. Other anodites gathered, drawn by the confrontation. Gwen felt their collective judgment, their disappointment in her choices. Years ago, it would have hurt. Now, with the bonds pulsing steady in her consciousness, she found she didn't care. You would threaten your own people? Verdona asked. I would save reality. If you're in the way. That's your problem, not mine. Verdona stared at her, and Gwen met that ancient gaze without flinching. Finally, her grandmother's form shifted, not quite a smile, but close. You have grown strong, opinionated, willing to stand against power when you believe you're right. A pause. Perhaps this bond has not weakened you as I feared. The bonds make all of us stronger, Gwen said. I don't expect you to understand that either. Anodites are famously solitary. We are. But we also recognize power when we see it. Verdona gestured, and space folded. They stood suddenly in a chamber that pulsed with such concentrated mana that even Charmcaster's protective bubble began to dissolve. At the chamber's heart, suspended in a lattice of pure energy, the harmonic crystal. It sang, literally sang, resonating at a frequency that matched Gwen's own mana signature perfectly. Magenta light pulsed within its facets, and Gwen felt the bond, her bond with Ben, with the others, strengthened just from proximity. The crystal will not yield to force, Verdona said. It requires proof of worthiness. Proof that you have truly mastered your nature. Of course it does, Charmcaster muttered. Because nothing is ever simple. Gwen approached the crystal, extending her hand. Energy leapt from the lattice, probing, testing. She felt it searching through her, examining every memory, every choice. Every doubt and triumph. Saw her life reflected in the crystal's facets. 10 years old, discovering magic. 13, fighting beside Ben against impossible odds. 16, choosing to stay human instead of ascending to full anodite form. 19, completing her doctorate while secretly fighting threats most humans couldn't imagine. 22, accepting the royal bond despite knowing how complicated it would be. The crystal showed her every version of herself she might have been. Full anodite, abandoning humanity entirely. Powerless human, magic stripped away. Dark sorceress, like Charmcaster's worst timeline. Hero, villain, victim, survivor. And in each timeline, one constant, the bond. The connection to Ben, to the others, shining like a star across every possible version of reality. You see, Verdona's voice was softer now. The bond is not a burden placed upon you. It is a fundamental truth of your existence. In every timeline, in every version of reality, you and he are drawn together. The absolute Omnitrix simply made manifest what was always true. Gwen's hand closed around the crystal. I know. I've known since the first moment in the Nexus. I was just afraid of what it meant. And now, now I'm choosing it anyway. Fear doesn't change necessity. The crystal dissolved into pure energy, flowing into Gwen's form. Power surged through her, the bond singing in perfect harmony. And for a moment she felt all of them. Ben facing the cascade over Bellwood, Kai and Attea navigating political intrigue, Julie and Eunice in null space, Ester and Looma rescuing refugees, and Charmcaster standing right beside her, radiating support through their growing connection. "We need to go," Gwen said, reforming her physical body as the crystal integrated. "The others are facing their own trials," Verdona finished. "Go, save your reality." "But Gwen," she paused. "The bonds will ask more of you than you imagine. The price of this power is intimacy, vulnerability, trust. Be prepared to pay it." Quote, "I will." They phased out, leaving the Anodite Nexus behind. In the transport ship, Gwen solidified completely back to her human form. Charmcaster watched her with careful eyes. "You okay?" "I told my grandmother to essentially get out of my way, claimed a cosmic artifact, and accepted that I'm cosmically bound to my cousin and 7 other women. I'm really not sure." "Okay, covers it." Charmcaster's laugh was surprised and genuine. "Fair. For what it's worth, you were magnificent in there. The way you stared down a being of pure energy and refused to back down. That was, what, attractive," Charmcaster finished, then looked surprised she'd said it aloud. Gwen felt heat rise in her cheeks, still got those, even after going full Anodite, and felt rough the bond that Charmcaster was equally flustered. The connection between them hummed, not romantic exactly, but intimate. Understanding forged through shared danger. "We should probably talk about that," Gwen said. "Later. When reality isn't ending." "Agreed. Later. After." Charmcaster's smile was crooked. "Assuming we survive, we will. All of us." Gwen touched the space where the crystal now resided, integrated into her very being. "We don't have a choice." INCURSEAN Imperial Palace, Attea and Kai. Kai had infiltrated 17 hostile installations in her plumber career. Everything from hybrid command ships to Vilgax's personal fortress. None of them had prepared her for the special hell that was Incursine political theater. The Galactic Concordat Summit occupied the palace's grand hall, a space designed to intimidate. With vaulted ceilings showing holographic projections of Incursine military victories and seating arranged in concentric circles that placed the Empress's throne at the center of attention. Currently, that throne sat empty, which was causing significant political turbulence. "Your Majesty has been absent for 3 weeks, Ambassador Zurgon was saying, his MP Hibian features twisted into obsequious concern. The Concordat questions whether the Incursine Empire remains stable enough for consideration of membership. Attea stood on the throne room's balcony, 1 level above the summit floor, watching the political maneuvering with cold calculation. Kai stood beside her, dressed in plumber formal uniform, scanning for threats with trained paranoia. Zurgon has been consolidating power since I left, Attea murmured. See how the minor houses cluster around him. He's promised them favorable trade positions in exchange for support. Classic coup architecture. Can you counter it? Kai asked. I can do better. I can use it. Attea's smile was predatory. The harmonic crystal is in the throne room's foundation, yes. According to Eunice's scans, it's directly beneath the throne itself. Integrated into the palace's power core. Perfect. Then we simply need to reclaim my throne with sufficient dramatic flair that the crystal recognizes my authority and yields. Attea adjusted her imperial regalia. Follow my lead. And please try to look intimidating. That won't be difficult. They descended to the summit floor. Silence spread like ripples as Attea walked, her head high. Every inch the Empress despite 3 weeks' absence. Kai followed 3 paces behind and to the left, close enough for protection, far enough to not crowd. Plumber Diplo. Modich protocol for guarding high-value political assets. Empress Attea, Zurgon said, his tone carefully neutral. How unexpected. We had feared you were indisposed. I was attending to matters of galactic significance. Unlike some, I do not limit my perspective to a single star system. Attea's voice carried across the chamber with practiced authority. But I returned to find my summit in disarray and my throne in question. Explain. The Concordat requires stable leadership, Your Majesty. Your unexplained absence created concerns. Concerns you were clearly eager to exploit. Attea's eyes swept the assembled delegates. Let me be transparent, since apparently rumors have filled the void of accurate information. I was summoned by cosmic necessity to join a royal bond, a union of nay individuals selected by reality itself to prevent the continuum cascade from erasing existence. I am bonded to Ben Tennyson, the human who has defeated more galactic threats than most of you have witnessed. Along with 7 other exceptional individuals. The chamber erupted. Shocked whispers, outraged declarations, a few nervous laughs. Kai's hand moved to her sidearm, tracking potential threats. You admit to binding yourself to a human. One delegate demanded. I admit to being chosen by forces that determine the fate of reality. The royal bond is not weakness, it is cosmic authority. Power beyond any single species or empire. Attea gestured, and her eyes flashed with something that wasn't entirely natural. The bond, Kai realized. Attea was pulling power through her connection to Ben, to all of them, and it showed. I am Empress of the Incursine people and member of a royal harem that will save the galaxy. Anyone who questions this is welcome to challenge me directly. Silence. Thought not. Attea continued toward her throne. Now, the Concordat will vote on Incursine membership, or I will withdraw our application and allocate our considerable military resources elsewhere. You have 5 minutes to decide. She sat on the throne. The palace shuddered. Kai felt it through the bond before her sensors registered it, power surging from beneath the throne, recognizing Attea's authority. Responding to her combined imperial and cosmic legitimacy. The harmonic crystal, ascending through layers of palace infrastructure, drawn to its bonded recipient. What is that? Zurgon demanded, stumbling as the floor cracked. That, Attea said calmly, is proof of exactly what I told you. The crystal burst through the floor in a shower of light and debris. Kai moved on instinct, creating a protective barrier with her body between Attea and the shrapnel. Felt impact against her armor, would have bruises tomorrow, didn't care. Protection was reflex. The crystal hovered before Attea's throne, pulsing with gold and green light. Kai saw it test Attea the way Gwen had described her own trial, examining, measuring, demanding proof of worthiness. Attea stood, approaching the crystal with her head high. You want to know if I'm worthy? I reformed an empire built on conquest. I turned warmongers into diplomats. I hold a throne not through birthright but through competence and will. I chose to bind myself to beings I once considered enemies because saving reality matters more than pride. She reached for the crystal. I am Empress Attea, and I am exactly as worthy as I need to be. The crystal dissolved, integrating with her form. Power rippled across Attea's frame, the bond singing in harmonic resonance, and for a moment Kai saw her not as political ally or cosmic partner but as what she'd become. Something magnificent and terrifying and necessary. The vote, Attea said, sitting back on her throne with the crystal's power still glowing beneath her skin, is concluded. The Incursine Empire is now part of the Galactic Concordat. Any objections will be noted and ignored. Zurgon's face cycled through several colors that Kai didn't have reference for in Incursine body language. Your Majesty has changed. Quote, I've evolved. The galaxy should consider doing the same. Attea stood. The summit is concluded. Ambassador Kai Green and I have urgent business preventing reality collapse. Try not to let the Empire fall apart while I'm gone. They strode from the throne room together, and Kai felt through the bond that the others were succeeding too. Julie and Eunice had retrieved their crystal. Ester and Looma were mid-operation. And Ben, facing the cascade alone over Bellwood, holding strong. You used your body to shield me, Attea observed once they were clear of the summit. That was tactically unnecessary. I'm significantly more durable than you. Protective instinct, Kai said. Not tactical, reflexive. The bond, asserting itself through action rather than words. How very you. Attea's smile was genuine. Thank you, Kai Green. For the protection, the partnership, and for not once suggesting I handle political threats with less ruthlessness. Your empire, your methods. I'm just providing security. You're providing significantly more than security, but I appreciate the professional framing. Attea's hand brushed Kai's arm, brief and deliberate. When this is over, when we've saved reality and integrated the crystals, we should spar. I find I work through complicated feelings best through combat. Same. I suspected as much. Warriors recognize each other. Attea's expression turned serious. The bonds are growing stronger. I can feel all of you now, not just as vague impressions but as distinct presences. It's invasive, Kai supplied. I was going to say, intimate. But your word works too. Attea looked at the space where the crystal had integrated. I've spent my life maintaining emotional distance. Strategic detachment. How I'm connected to 8 people at a soul level. It's antithetical to everything I've trained myself to be. And yet you're adapting. Kai met her eyes. We all are. Because the alternative is annihilation. Necessity is a powerful motivator. Attea paused. But it's not only necessity anymore, is it? These bonds, I find myself caring. About the mission, yes, but also about you. All of you. About whether Julie successfully navigates the graveyard, whether Gwen handles her grandmother, whether Ben survives the Cascade manifestation. She laughed bitterly. An empress cannot afford to care. It creates vulnerability. Maybe, Kai said slowly, working through thoughts she'd been avoiding for weeks. Or maybe it creates strength. Shared burden, shared power. Vulnerability is tact. ICAL advantage because it allows coordination that isolated individuals can't achieve. When did you become a philosopher? When I got cosmically bonded to 8 people and had to rationalize it somehow. Kai checked her chronometer. We need to move. Rendezvous in 90 minutes. They boarded the transport ship, and Kai felt through the bond as more crystals integrated. 6 now. Just 2 Rime, Ning, Ben's confrontation with the Cascade, and wherever Looma and Ester were. Come on, she thought along the bond, hoping Ben could feel it. All of you, come back, and distantly, like an echo across galaxies, we will. Null Void Ship Graveyard, Julie and Eunice. The graveyard was silent in the way only space could be silent, absolute, oppressive, eternal. Julie floated among the debris of 10,000 dead ships. Ship's armor keeping her alive while her heart broke at the sight. Ships of every configuration imaginable drifted here, their consciousness cores dark, their metamorphic abilities dormant. This was where ship species came when they could no longer sustain themselves. The final resting place for beings who existed to serve, to bond, to protect. Ship chittered nervously against Julie's shoulders. And she felt his distress through their connection. Not the royal bond, but the older bond they'd forged years ago when she'd been just a girl and he'd been a scared alien looking for someone to need him. I know, Julie whispered, touching Ship's surface gently. I know this is hard. But the crystal is here. We retrieve it, and we never come back. Emotional distress is significantly elevated. Eunice observed from beside her, her own environmental suit humming with plumber technology. Ship's bio readings suggest approaching critical trauma threshold. He'll hold together. We both will. Julie oriented herself, using Ship's sensory abilities to scan for the harmonic frequency that would indicate the crystal. There. 300 meters, 11 degrees spinward. They navigated through the graveyard. And Julie tried not to look too closely at the dead ships. Tried not to imagine Ship ending up here someday, cold and dark and alone. The thought made her chest tighten. Query, Eunice said in her careful, measured way, your distress is also elevated. Is it empathy for Ship, or personal fear? Both. Neither. I don't know. Julie pushed off a piece of debris, adjusting trajectory. Ship and I have been together since I was 15. He's my best friend, my partner. Seeing where he'll eventually end up, it makes it real. Mortality. Endings. All things end, Eunice said. Even I will eventually cease function, though my operational lifespan exceeds organic norms by several magnitudes. Does the inevitability of cessation diminish the value of existence? I don't know. Does it? Eunice was quiet for a moment, processing. I am still determining that answer. As a constructed being, I was not designed with existential philosophy in mind. The bonds, however, have forced me to consider questions beyond my original programming. Purpose, value, whether I am truly alive or simply sophisticated enough to simulate life convincingly. You're alive, Julie said with certainty. You feel, you choose, you grow. That's what life is. That is a definition I am choosing to accept. Eunice's smile was small but genuine. Thank you, Julie. They reached the Crystal's location, embedded in the consciousness core of a massive ship, easily 10 times Ship's maximum size. This one had been ancient when it died, its surface scarred by centuries of service. Oh no, Julie breathed. The crystal pulsed inside the dead ship's core, and she understood with sick certainty what would be required. To retrieve it, Ship would need to interface directly with the deceased. To connect consciousness to consciousness with one of his own kind that had ceased to exist. It would be like touching a corpse with your mind. There must be an alternative, Eunice said, her processors working overtime. A technological extraction that doesn't require. There isn't. Julie knew it the way she knew Ship's moods, his needs, his fears. The crystal is waiting for him specifically. It needs him to prove he can face his own mortality and choose to continue anyway. Ship's chittering turned distressed, almost panicked. I know, Julie said gently, turning so she could see him properly, not armor now, but his true form. Pressed against her suit's faceplate. I know I'm asking you to do something terrifying. But I'll be right here. You're not alone. Could Ship refuse? Would the mission fail if he couldn't face this trial? No, Julie wouldn't let that happen. If Ship couldn't do it alone, they'd do it together. She placed her hand on the dead Ship's surface. Ship, merge with me. Full integration. Ship's alarm was immediate. Full integration was dangerous, requiring complete synchronization between organic and metamorphic consciousness. Too deep, and Julie's human mind could be lost in Ship's alien perspective. But it was the only way to give him the strength to face this. Trust me, Julie said. Like I trust you, always. Ship flowed over her, not just armor but integration. Julie felt her consciousness expand, taking in Ship's sensory data, his emotional processing, his memory archives. Saw herself through his perception. Not Julie Yamamoto the girl, but Julie the partner, the friend. The one who'd never abandoned him even when it would have been easier. Together, they touched the dead Ship's core. Silence. Not peaceful. Empty. The absence of everything that had made this being alive. Memories lingered like ghosts. Thousands of partners served over centuries, battles fought, worlds saved, and finally, the long drift to this graveyard when no one needed him anymore. Julie felt Ship's terror, his certainty that this would be his fate too. Discarded when he was no longer useful. Alone at the end. No, Julie said, and she wasn't sure if she spoke aloud or directly into Ship's consciousness. This isn't your future. You're not alone. You'll never be alone. I promise. Could she promise that? Could any organic promise to outlive a being whose lifespan stretched potentially centuries? No, but she could promise to value every moment they had. To make sure Ship knew he was loved, needed, irreplaceable. The crystal responded to that truth, to the bond between them that transcended species and biology. It pulsed, warmth in the cold graveyard, and Julie understood. The trial wasn't for Ship to face death alone. It was for both of them to face it together and choose life anyway. She pulled Ship's consciousness back from the dead core, back to the present, back to her. The crystal followed, drawn by their bond, not the royal bond with Ben and the others, but their own connection. Forged years before cosmic destiny had entered the picture. The crystal integrated with Ship's core, and through their merged consciousness, Julie felt it settle into place. Power flowed through both of them. Harmonic resonance singing, and for a moment she experienced what Ship experienced, the galaxy through senses that perceived magnetic fields and quantum states. And gravitational wells as vividly as humans saw color. They separated slowly, carefully. Ship reformed into his compact shape, chittering with exhaustion but alive, present, still himself. Julie's man consciousness settled back into its normal parameters, though she retained echoes of Ship's perspective. That was extraordinary, Eunice said, and Julie realized the other woman had been monitoring their bio-signs. Ready to intervene if the integration had gone wrong. Full consciousness merger with a non-humanoid species while under emotional duress, successful retrieval of a cosmic artifact. And separation with both parties intact. The statistical improbability is staggering. It wasn't statistics, Julie said, cradling Ship gently. It was love. Yes, Eunice agreed softly. I am beginning to understand that love is the variable that makes most of my probability calculations inaccurate. It is inefficient, unpredictable, and somehow more powerful than any force I can quantify. Welcome to being alive, Julie said with a tired smile. They left the graveyard behind, Ship carrying them toward the rendezvous coordinates. Julie felt through the royal bond that others had succeeded. Too, Ester and Looma had saved the refuge station and claimed their crystal. Only Ben remained, facing the cascade over Earth. He'll succeed, Eunice said, clearly sensing Julie's worry through the bond. He always does. There's a first time for everything, Julie whispered, echoing what Ben had said earlier. Not today, Eunice replied, firm and certain. Today, we all succeed together. Bellwood, Ben. The cascade manifestation over Bellwood was beautiful in the way apocalypses often were, terrible and mesmerizing, reality tearing itself apart in slow motion. Ben stood on the roof of Plumber HQ, watching probability collapse into nightmare configurations. People who had never existed walked the streets alongside those who had. Buildings flickered between states, constructed, ruined, never built at all. The sky cycled through colors that didn't have names, and beneath it all, the fundamental frequency of the universe screamed in pain. Evacuation is complete, Rook's voice came through Ben's comm. All civilians are clear of the distortion radius. You are authorized to engage. Thanks, Rook. Ben's hand moved to the absolute Omnitrix. Stand by for my signal. Ben. Rook's voice shifted, personal rather than professional. Come back. That is not a request from your partner. That is a demand from your friend. I'll do my best. Ben cut the comm before Rook could respond. Drew a breath. Felt along the bonds. All 8 of them, stronger now than ever before. Gwen and Charmcaster, successful. Attea and Kai, successful. Julie and Eunice, successful. Ester and Looma, successful. 7 crystals retrieved, integrated. Harmonizing. Just his remained. The final piece of the puzzle. The cascade manifestation pulsed, and Ben felt it test him. Felt it search through his history, his choices, every victory and failure. Saw his life reflected in the reality distortion. 10 years old, finding the Omnitrix. Making the choice to help people, over and over, even when it cost him. 15. Fighting Vilgax and Egregor and the hybrid. Learning that heroism wasn't about power, but about choosing to act when it mattered. 20. Facing Maltruant, nearly losing everything, saving the universe through sacrifice and cleverness and stubborn refusal to give up. 22. Accepting the absolute Omnitrix and the royal bonds, knowing it would change everything. The manifestation showed him the alternatives. Versions of himself who'd refused the bonds, tried to fight alone. In every timeline, he failed. In every version of reality where he remained isolated, the cascade consumed everything. But in the timelines where he accepted the bonds, where he let others share his burden. Possibility, hope, victory. I get it, Ben said to the manifestation, to the universe, to whatever cosmic force was testing him. I can't do this alone. I've never been able to do it alone, I was just too proud to admit it. The Omnitrix made me powerful, but the bonds make me complete. The manifestation didn't respond with words. It responded with action. Reality attack. The cascade surged forward, trying to erase Ben from existence retroactively. He felt it claw at his timeline, attempting to unwrite his birth, his childhood. Every moment that had led to this confrontation. Ben slammed the absolute Omnitrix. The transformation was different this time, not a fusion form, but something new. He felt the bonds surge. Felt the power of all 8 crystals flowing through the connections. Felt Gwen's magic and Kai's tactical precision and Julie's determination and Ester's scientific curiosity. Tai and Attea's strategic brilliance and Looma's warrior spirit and Charmcaster's hard-won redemption and Eunice's emergent humanity all combining with his own power. He became something that had no name. A form that was all his aliens and none of them, that existed in multiple states simultaneously, that could perceive reality at its fundamental level and understand how to repair it. Ben struck the cascade manifestation with everything he had. The battle existed outside normal spacetime. Ben fought across probability streams, sealing temporal wounds, stabilizing quantum fluctuations, literally wrestling entropy itself. The manifestation adapted, evolved, through attacks that unmade physics. Ben countered with the bonds, with the harmonic resonance of 9 souls working in perfect synchroniza. Despite being scattered across the galaxy. He felt them supporting him. Gwen channeling mana through their connection. Kai providing tactical analysis faster than conscious thought. Julie offering emotional stability through ship's bond. Ester suggesting scientific solutions to impossible problems. Attea calculating strategic positions. Looma lending raw determination. Charmcaster adding her magical expertise. Eunice processing data at computational speeds, finding patterns in chaos. Together. They fought together, even separated by light years. The cascade manifestation made a final MPT, trying to corrupt the bonds themselves, to turn their connection against them. Ben felt the attack pierce through, felt it search for weakness, for jealousy or resentment or fear among the 9 of them. It found none, or rather, it found all of those things. They were human and alien after all, complicated and messy and full of conflicting emotions. But beneath the surface complications, the bonds held firm. Trust, respect, growing affection, the choice to stand together. The manifestation couldn't corrupt that. Ben sealed the cascade tier, wove reality back together with harmonic frequencies, stitched probability streams into coherent narrative, stabilized the fundamental forces until Bellwood existed in only one timeline again, solid and real. The 8th crystal manifested in his hand, pulsing with green-gold light. "Yeah," Ben said, exhausted and triumphant. "We earned this." He integrated the crystal, felt it slot into place with the other 7, felt the absolute Omnitrix achieve its final evolution. Power beyond anything he'd imagined flooded his system, not just alien transformations but reality manipulation, timeline anchoring, the ability to hold existence together through sheer harmonic will. The transformation faded. Ben stood human again, the absolute Omnitrix gleaming with 8 crystals arranged around its core, each one pulsing in perfect synchronization with the bonds. Ben. Rook was there suddenly, checking him for injuries with professional efficiency. The distortion collapsed. "The cascade signature is gone." "You succeeded." "We succeeded," Ben corrected. "All of us." He felt them approaching. Ships converging on Earth from across the galaxy, drawn by the completed bond. Felt their relief, their exhaustion, their triumph. 8 women and 1 man, scattered across impossible distances. Connected by something stronger than space or time. They'd retrieved all the crystals. They'd passed their trials. They'd proven the bonds were real. Now came the hard part. Learning to actually live with them. Plumber Station Gamma 7, reunion. They gathered in the station's observation deck, arriving one by one through various transport methods. Ben watched them enter, cataloging injuries minor, exhaustion significant, and success absolute. Gwen and Charmcaster arrived together, their magical signatures intertwined in ways that suggested they'd be practicing combined spellwork during the return trip. Attea and Kai followed, both projecting military bearing despite obvious fatigue. Julie and Eunice phased in from null space, ship flowing protectively around Julie's shoulders. Ester and Looma appeared last, the Tetraman warrior carrying what looked like a Kraho child in one of her 4 arms. "Refugee," Looma explained at Ben's questioning look. "Found during evacuation. She needs shelter until families are reunited." "We'll make arrangements," Ben promised, then addressed the group. "Everyone okay?" "Bruised, magically depleted, politically compromised, emotionally exhausted, and existentially traumatized," Charmcaster listed. "But alive, so, relatively okay. The crystals are integrated," Eunice reported, her eyes flashing with data. "All 8 harmonizing at 97% efficiency. Final synchronization should occur within 48 hours as our bonds continue to strengthen." "And then?" Kai asked. "Then we can Yuli activate the absolute Omnitrix's reality anchoring protocols. Seal the cascade permanently. Save the universe." Ben smiled tiredly. "Just another Tuesday. Assuming nothing goes catastrophically wrong in the next 48 hours. Attea said. The station shuddered. Alarms shrieked. The observation deck's viewport showed space distorting, but not from the cascade. This was different. A ship emerging from FTL. Massive and ancient and radiating power signatures that made the station's sensors scream warnings. "Identification," Ben demanded. Eunice's eyes went wide. That's not possible. That configuration, that energy signature, it's Celestial Sapien technology. But Celestial Sapiens don't use ships. The vessel hung in space before them, and across all their bonds, Ben felt the same realization crystallize. This wasn't a rescue. This was a challenge. A hologram materialized in the observation deck, humanoid, vaguely, but fractal and impossible in the way only higher dimensional beings could be. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to pause to listen. "Ben Tennyson, Royal Harem of the Absolute Omnitrix. You have retrieved the harmonic crystals and proven worthy of the bonds." The voice was neither male nor female, young nor old. But worthiness of the bonds and worthiness to wield their power against the cascade's true source are not equivalent. True source. Gwen stepped forward. The cascade isn't a natural phenomenon. It is a weapon, deployed by Maltruant's consciousness, surviving in the time stream, seeking revenge against the one who defeated him. The cry, stalls have given you the power to fight back. But can you use that power effectively? Can 9 individuals from different worlds, different backgrounds, different philosophies, truly function as one? We just proved that we could. Julie said. You proved you could work separately toward a common goal. I ask whether you can fight together, directly, with complete trust and synchronization. The hologram gestured, and 8 smaller forms materialized around it. Face your shadows. Overcome them. Prove the bonds are absolute. The forms solidified into mirror versions of themselves, not physical copies, but manifestations of their doubts, fears, the worst versions of who they could become. Shadow Gwen, consumed by power, her anodite form burning with mindless energy. Shadow Kai, isolated and alone, trust shattered beyond repair. Shadow Julie, broken by loss, ship's core dark in her arms. Shadow Ester, watching her people die while she remained helpless. Shadow Attea, the tyrant she'd fought so hard not to become. Shadow Looma, honor abandoned, nothing but rage and violence. Shadow Charmcaster, fully embracing darkness, redemption rejected. Shadow Eunice, realizing she was never truly alive, just programming. And in the center, Shadow Ben, wielding the absolute Omnitrix not to save but to control, power without responsibility, the dictator the galaxy had always feared he might become. 48 hours until the cascade's final phase, the Celestial Sapien said. 48 hours to prove you deserve the power you've claimed. Survive your shadows. Overcome your doubts. Become truly unified. The hologram vanished. The ship remained, waiting, watching. 8 women and 1 man stood in the observation deck, staring at the worst versions of themselves, and understood. This was the real trial. Everything before had been preparation. Now they had to become what the universe needed them to be. Together. Chapter 3. Absolute Unity. Shadow Ben moved first. No preamble, no villain monologue. Just immediate violence. The absolute Omnitrix flaring with corrupted light as the shadow transformed into something nightmarish. A fusion of ultimate homungosaur and way big and atomics. Scales and cosmic radiation and raw destructive power compressed into a form designed for one purpose, domination. The real Ben barely got his hand to his own Omnitrix before the shadow's fist crater. Ed the observation deck floor where he'd been standing a microsecond earlier. Metal shrieked. Atmosphere vented in explosive decompression until emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing the breach trapping them in a combat arena roughly 50 meters across. Scatter. Ben's order cut through the chaos as he transformed, not into overwhelming power to match his shadow, but into XLR8, speed over strength. Because the first rule of asymmetric warfare was never fight on your enemy's terms. The others moved on instinct and training, but their shadows moved faster. Shadow Looma caught the real Uma with a clothesline that would have decapitated a human, 4 arms wrapping around 4 arms in a grapple that was pure hatred given form. You pretend honor matters. Pretend the old ways mean something. But you know the truth. Warriors are just killers with poetry. Shadow Charmcaster didn't bother with physical attacks. Reality warped around her, legerdemain magic twisting into configurations that made sanity optional. The real Charmcaster countered with her own spells, violet energy clashing against corrupted purple, but her shadow was laughing, mocking. You think you've changed. You're one bad day from becoming me again. One loss. One betrayal. Redemption is a story you tell yourself to sleep at night. Shadow Kai fought with precision, each strike targeting psychological weaknesses rather than physical ones. Disarmed the real Kai in 3 moves, had her on the defensive in 5, whispered with every blocked blow, alone. Always alone. The bond is a leash. You'll never be free again. Gwen tried to erect a mana barrier, shield the others, coordinate defense like they'd practiced. Shadow Gwen shattered it with casual power, anodite form blazing with energy that recognized no limits, no control. You're weak because you care. Power is wasted on the compassionate. I could burn galaxies and you make shields. Pathetic. The observation deck became a war zone. Julie and ship merged, trying to use metamorphic armor to adapt to multiple threats simultaneously, but Shadow Julie was there with ship's core torn from her chest, dead and dark, showing her worst fear made manifest. Ester's thermal fields collided with Shadow Ester's absolute zero despair, freezing and burning in impossible combination. Attea's tactical mind raced through scenarios while Shadow Attea dismantled each strategy before it could form. Always 3 steps ahead, the tyrant unleashed. And Eunice, Shadow Eunice simply stood there, not fighting, just existing as proof of the question Eunice feared most. You're a machine pretending to be alive. Your feelings are programmed responses. Your choices are predetermined algorithms. You are not real. Ben blurred through the combat at XLR8 speeds, trying to coordinate, to support, to be everywhere at once. But even with temporal acceleration, he couldn't reach all of them. Couldn't stop Shadow Looma from drawing blood. Couldn't prevent Shadow Charmcaster's reality warping from catching the real Charmcaster in a nightmare loop. Couldn't help Kai as her shadow systematically destroyed her defenses. The bonds screamed with pain, fear, desperation. This was the trial, not physical combat. They could win that, given time and coordination. This was psychological warfare designed to shatter their unity by forcing each person to confront the fundamental fear that kept them from fully embracing the bonds. Ben shifted from XLR8 to Brainstorm, 5-level intellect analyzing the situation in microseconds. The shadows weren't separate entities. They were manifestations drawn from their own doubts, powered by whatever cosmic force the celestial sapien had left behind. Fighting them physically was fighting themselves. They'd already proven they could work separately toward common goals. This trial demanded something different. Complete trust, Ben realized. Complete vulnerability. No walls, no defenses, absolute openness through the bonds. The thing they'd all been avoiding. Stop fighting. Ben's amplified voice carried over the chaos. Everyone, stop fighting them and open the bonds. Completely. That's insane. Kai shouted back, barely dodging her shadow's plasma fire. Opening ourselves that much is exactly what they can't do. Ben transformed again, feedback this time, absorbing energy attacks meant for Gwen. The shadows are our fears, our isolation, our refusal to fully connect. We beat them by doing what they can't, trusting each other absolutely. Easier said than accomplished. Attea's tactical mind was clearly running scenarios. Full bond synchronization requires psychological vulnerability that terrifies all of us, yes. Gwen's mana flared as she grappled with her shadow. But Ben's right. Look at them. The shadows are fighting alone. Even when they're attacking us together. No coordination. No shared power. Because they represent our fear of connection. Shadow Ben's laugh boomed through the observation deck. You think trust defeats power? Watch me prove otherwise. The shadow transformed again, becoming something worse. Not alien forms but Ben's human shape, holding the absolute Omnitrix like a weapon instead of a tool. The dictator. The tyrant. The hero who decided he knew better than everyone else and took control, for their own good. The real Ben felt ice in his chest. That was the fear, wasn't it? That the power would corrupt him. That he'd become so strong, so necessary, that he'd stop asking and start commanding. Stop suggesting and start controlling. That the bonds would become chains. He placed on 8 people who trusted him. No, Ben said quietly. Then louder. No. That's not who I am. That's not who we are. He dropped his transformation, stood human and vulnerable in the middle of a combat zone. And opened his bond completely. Not just the surface level they'd been using, emotional impressions, tactical coordination, power sharing. He opened everything, every fear, every doubt, every moment of weakness and strength, every private thought he'd kept carefully hidden. Let it all pour through the bonds to the 8 women connected to him. Let them see him, actually see him, the Ben who was terrified of failing them. The Ben who lay awake wondering if he'd manipulated them by activating the absolute Omnitrix. The Ben who wanted desperately to be worthy of their trust and had no idea if he actually was. The Ben who was falling in love with all of them in 8 completely different ways and didn't know how to navigate that without hurting someone. Raw, honest, vulnerable. The bonds blazed with feedback, shock, recognition, and then, impossibly, acceptance. Gwen opened her bond next. Let him feel her fear of losing herself to power, of the Anodite heritage consuming her humanity. Let him feel her complicated tangle of feelings about him, cousin, partner, friend, and now something more that she'd been terrified to examine. Let him feel her brilliant, analytical mind that overthought everything in her heart that felt too much. Kai followed, walls crumbling with visible effort, showed him the loneliness she'd never admitted, the independence that was part strength and part defense mechanism. Showed him that the bond terrified her not because it was invasive but because she wanted it, wanted connection, wanted to stop carrying everything alone. Showed him the warrior who'd forgotten how to be anything else and was desperately trying to remember. Julie, Ester, Attea, Looma, Charmcaster, Eunice, one by one, they stopped fighting their shadows and opened themselves completely. Julie's fear that she wasn't strong enough, brave enough, important enough. Her quiet strength that held them together when everything fell apart. Esther's feeling of displacement, of never quite belonging anywhere. Species and culture forever lost. Her gentle wisdom that found beauty in connection. Attea's terror of vulnerability, of caring about anything more than power and survival. Her brilliant tactical mind that had reformed an empire and was learning, slowly, painfully, to reform herself. Looma's warrior culture that gave her strength but limited her emotional expression. Her poetic soul that understood honor and love as the same thing. Charmcaster's certainty that she didn't deserve redemption, that darkness would always reclaim her. Her hard-won hope that maybe, just maybe, she could be more than her worst choices. Eunice's existential uncertainty about her own existence, whether feelings were real or simulated. Her emerging humanity that was teaching her that the question itself was what made her alive. The bonds synchronized, not 97%, 100%, absolute. 9 souls, completely open, completely vulnerable, completely trusting. The shadows screamed, because that was the thing about manifestations of fear and doubt, they couldn't exist in the presence of absolute acceptance. The shadows were powered by isolation, by the walls they each kept up. By the parts of themselves they hid from each other. Confronted with total transparency, total trust, total unity, the shadows dissolved, not defeated through violence but through obsolescence. The fears didn't disappear. They never would. Fear was part of being alive, but they lost their power to divide. Shadow Ben was the last to fade, and as it dissolved, the real Ben felt something strange. Gratitude. The shadow had forced them to face what they'd been avoiding, to achieve the synchronization they needed not through gradual progress but through necessity. Sometimes you had to jump off the cliff to learn you could fly. The observation deck fell silent except for heavy breathing and the station's systems humming back to normal. 9 people, scattered across the damaged space, connected by bonds that now thrummed with absolute clarity. Well, Charmcaster said into the silence. That was intensely uncomfortable and probably the most important thing we've ever done. I hate it. Also I'm grateful. It's complicated. Despite everything, Ben laughed. The sound broke the tension, and suddenly they were all laughing, exhausted and emotionally raw and alive. The Celestial Sapiens trial is complete, Eunice said, her eyes distant as she processed data and emotions in equal measure. We achieved full synchronization. The absolute Omnitrix it's responding. All systems are active. We have access to the reality anchoring protocols. Can we seal the cascade? Gwen asked. Not yet. Eunice's expression turned grim. The Celestial Sapien said the cascade was a weapon. Maltruant's consciousness, surviving in the time stream. We can't seal it until we defeat its source. And with full synchronization achieved. She paused. He knows. He knows we're ready. He'll manifest for direct confrontation. As if summoned by her words, space twisted outside the viewport. Not the random distortion of cascade effects but deliberate reality manipulation. A figure formed from temporal energy, growing until it dwarfed the station, until it filled the viewscreen with mechanical malevolence. Maltruant, or what remained of him. A ghost in the timestream given form through Tolan Celestial Sapien technology and absolute hatred. When he spoke, his voice echoed across multiple timelines simultaneously. Ben Tennyson. You destroyed me once. Erased me from time. But time remembers. Time always remembers. I have spent eternity learning the gaps between moments, the spaces where reality frays. I became the cascade. I became the end of everything. And now, I will watch you ail to save the universe you sacrificed me to protect. The station shuddered as Maltruant's presence began warping local spacetime. Ben felt the bond's pulse, felt the 8 women ready themselves for combat. Felt the absolute Omnitrix burning against his wrist with power that could reshape reality. "We need to take this fight somewhere that's not near inhabited space," Attea said, already calculating. If Maltruant is drawing power from temporal manipulation, he can cause cascading damage to any nearby timeline anchors. "The Forge of Eternity," Gwen suggested. "The nexus point where all timelines intersect. No innocent bystanders. And it's the one place where his temporal manipulation would be limited by the presence of all possible moments simultaneously." "Can we even reach it?" Kai asked. Ben looked at the absolute Omnitrix, felt the crystals pulsing in perfect harmony with the bonds, felt the power of 9 souls in absolute synchronization, and knew the answer: together. "We can reach anywhere." He placed his hand on the Omnitrix. Felt the others move close, forming a circle, hands touching shoulders, ship flowing between them in a living connection, bonds blazing with unified purpose. "Get us to the forge," Ben said to the Omnitrix, to the universe, to the bonds themselves. Reality folded. The Forge of Eternity. Existing in the forge was like existing everywhere and everywhen simultaneously. Ben stood on crystalline ground that reflected infinite timelines, surrounded by his bonded partners, watching Maltruant's manifestation coalesce across every possible moment. The villain was vast here, no longer limited to a single temporal instance. Ben saw Maltruant as he'd been, ambitious chronosapian seeking ultimate power. Maltruant as he'd become, temporal tyrant nearly conquering existence. Maltruant as he'd ended, destroyed by Ben's past self, erased from the timeline. And Maltruant as he was now, a vengeful consciousness woven into the fabric of entropy itself, He cascade given intelligence and malice. Impressive, Maltruant's voice came from every direction. "You've achieved royal bond synchronization. Brought the absolute Omnitrix to full power. United 8 disparate souls, all to oppose me." The temporal villain's laugh resonated across timelines. "But you misunderstand the nature of this conflict. I am not a being you can fight. I am a force. I am the inevitable heat death of reality. Simply occurring faster and with intention. You cannot defeat entropy, Ben Tennyson. You can only delay it. Delaying the heat death of the universe is basically my hobby at this point," Ben replied. Already feeling the Omnitrix analyzing Maltruant's temporal structure. "But you're not entropy. You're just a sore loser who couldn't accept defeat. I am defeat. I am the cascade. I am the end of all things." Maltruant's manifestation swelled, and Ben felt the forge itself begin to destabilize. "You erased me from existence, so I became existence's erasure. Perfect symmetry. Perfect revenge." Maltruant attacked, and the assault came from every point in time simultaneously. Past attacks. Temporal energy lances from moments that had already happened, striking before Ben could perceive them. Present attacks. Direct reality warping in the now, tearing at the bonds between the 9 of them. Future attacks. Probability manipulation ensuring that every defensive action would fail. Ben transformed into clockwork, temporal awareness his only chance to perceive the multidimensional assault. But even with time manipulation abilities, he was one being trying to defend against attacks from infinite moments. That's when the bonds saved him. Gwen was there, mana flowing through their connection, shielding against past attacks by retroactively placing protection spells in previous moments. Her anodite heritage let her exist partially outside linear time, meeting Maltruant's temporal assault with metaphysical defense. Charmcaster wove legerdemain magic through the present, her spells binding reality against warping, trading sacrifices from her own power to stabilize their immediate existence. Dark magic used for light purpose, redemption made manifest. Eunice processed future probabilities faster than Maltruant could manipulate them, her computational abilities calculating quantum outcomes and collapsing favorable timelines through sheer mathematical precision. The living Omnitrix proving that consciousness could outthink chaos. Kai and Attea didn't have magic or time powers, but they had tactical brilliance that transcended temporal limitation. Together, they read Maltruant's attack patterns, identified weaknesses in temporal coverage, directed the other's abilities with military precision that turned individual powers into coordinated devastation. Julie and Ship provided mobility and adaptation, metamorphic abilities letting them shield team members and transport them across the battlefield faster than Maltruant could track. Love B. Tween species transcending temporal limitation. Ester's thermal manipulation created stability zones, pockets of normal spacetime where temperature and energy followed predictable rules. Islands of science in a sea of temporal chaos. And Looma. Looma simply grabbed chunks of the Forge's crystallized timeline and threw them at Maltruant's manifestation with Tetraman strength, because sometimes the most complex problems required the most direct solutions. Warrior philosophy meeting cosmic threat with four-armed violence. Ben felt it all through the bonds. Felt their powers flowing together, complementing each other, covering weaknesses and amplifying strengths. Felt 9 completely different individuals functioning as a single unified force. This was what the royal bond was meant to be. Not romantic fantasy or cosmic coincidence, but perfect tactical, magical, emotional synchronization. He transformed from clockwork to Alien X. The celestial sapien form had always been nearly unusable, INF. A night power locked behind the requirement that 3 personalities achieve unanimous decisions. But with the bonds at full strength, Ben didn't need Serena and Bellicus. He had 8 other voices, 8 other perspectives. All in perfect harmony. Reality manipulation online. Eunice reported through the bond. Temporal anchoring established. Gwen added, her magic weaving through Alien X's cosmic awareness. Targeting solutions calculated. Attea and Kai said in perfect unison. Tactical minds merged through the connection. Love provided. Julie whispered, and Ben felt it. All of them, their affection and trust and willingness to fight beside him, flowing through the bond and giving him the emotional anchor to use Alien X's power without losing himself. Ben spoke with Alien X's voice, real. ITY listening. Motion to repair timeline damage caused by Maltruant's cascade weapon. 8 voices through the bond. Seconded. Alien X moved. Reality rewrote itself. Ben reached across timelines with celestial sapien power. Guided by Eunice's calculations and Gwen's magical sight and Kai's tactical precision. Found every point where the cascade had torn existence, every moment Maltruant had corrupted. Every probability the villain had twisted. And he healed them, not erasing. He'd learned that lesson. Erasure from time was what created Maltruant's vengeful consciousness in the first place. Instead, Ben integrated, acknowledged what Maltruant had been, accepted it as part of timeline history, and then moved forward. Let the past be past instead of trying to rewrite it. No, Maltruant's manifestation convulsed as the cascade began to seal. You cannot. I am entropy. I am inevitable. I am. You were defeated, Ben said quietly. Again. And this time, I'm not erasing you. I'm giving you what you actually wanted. He reached out with Alien X's power and pulled Maltruant's consciousness from the timestream. Gave it form again. Not the mechanical body the villain had worn before, but a simple temporal matrix. Existence without power. Life without the ability to threaten others. You wanted to exist, Ben said. You hated being erased. So exist. Here, in the Forge, where all timelines meet. Watch the universe continue. Learn that your absence didn't destroy everything. That you weren't as important as you thought. He paused. Maybe, eventually, you'll find peace. Or maybe you'll stay angry forever. But you'll do it without hurting anyone else. Maltruant's consciousness flickered with rage, with denial, with confusion. You would spare me. After everything, I'm not sparing you. I'm choosing not to become you. Ben felt the bonds pulse in agreement. Revenge creates revenge. Erasure creates desperation. Someone has to break the cycle. Might as well be us. The cascade sealed completely. Ben felt it across every timeline. Reality stabilizing, entropy returning to its natural pace, existence safe. The Forge of Eternity pulsed with approval, and Ben realized the cause. Mike trial had never been just about defeating Maltruant. It had been about proving they could wield ultimate power and choose mercy. The test was complete. The bonds were absolute. The universe was saved. Plumber Station Gamma 7. 1 week later. Ben found Gwen in the station's library, a generous term for a converted storage bay filled with whatever books, tablets, and data cores they'd managed to collect. She sat surrounded by floating holographic texts, her anodite form partially manifested, mana weaving through research like a craftsperson at work. Hey, he said softly, not wanting to startle her. Gwen's eyes, pure magenta energy in this state, focused on him, and he felt through the bond her warmth, her affection, her lingering uncertainty. Hey yourself, shouldn't you be resting? You used Alien X for 7 continuous hours. That's got to be exhausting. Surprisingly, I feel fine. I think the bonds are distributing the strain. Ben settled beside her, watching magical text scroll past. What are you researching? Historical precedents for royal bonds across galactic cultures. Turns out we're not as unique as I thought. She gestured, and a hologram displayed artwork from a dozen species, warriors, scholars, mystics. All bound together in groups ranging from 3 to 20 individuals. It's rare but consistent throughout recorded history. When reality faces existential threats, the universe creates these connections. Forces cooperation through synchronization. Romantic cooperation, Ben observed, noting that most of the artwork depicted the bonded individuals in clearly intimate configurations. The romance seems to be inevitable outcome rather than requirement. Proximity plus emotional connection plus shared danger equals attraction. Basic psychology, really. G.W.N's academic tone didn't quite hide her discomfort with applying that analysis to themselves. Ben, we need to talk about the practical aspects of being in love with you. Multiple yous, all different versions, while also being your cousin. Ben kept his voice light, but through the bond, Gwen felt his sincerity. Yeah, we probably should. I was going to say, managing a polyamorous relationship. Structure across 9 individuals with wildly different backgrounds and needs, but your version is more direct. I spent years hiding behind deflection and humor. The bonds kind of made that impossible. Ben met her eyes. Easier now that he could feel her emotions, know that his honesty wouldn't be rejected. For what it's worth, the cousin thing is complicated for me too. But Anodites don't have the same taboos about genetic relation, and technically you're more Anodite than human at this point, and the universe itself decided we're compatible, and I'm realizing I'm overthinking this. We both overthink. It's our shared character flaw. Gwen's smile was soft. I'm not asking for immediate resolution, Ben. I just need to know you're okay with this. With us. All of us. I'm more than okay. I'm grateful. He took her hand. Energy touching flesh, magic and human combined. Gwen, you've been my partner since we were kids. You know me better than anyone. The bond didn't create my feelings, it just made me stop pretending they didn't exist. Same, she whispered. Then, stronger, but I'm one of 8. We need to establish boundaries, expectations, make sure everyone's needs are met without creating hierarchy or resentment. This is unprecedented territory, and I want to do it right. So we figure it out together. All 9 of us. Ben felt through the bond that the others were approaching, not eavesdropping precisely, but aware of the conversation through their connection and wanting to be part of it. Speak of the devil, or devils, plural. The library door opened, and they entered one by one. Kai in workout gear, clearly coming from training. Julie with ship in compact form, holding a tablet with engineering schematics. Ester carrying tea in delicate cups, because Kraho hospitality was instinctive. Attea in imperial regalia, because image was armor and old habits died hard. Looma taking up too much space and not caring, presence unapologetic. Charmcaster with the guarded expression that meant she wanted to be here but was prepared to flee if necessary. Eunice processing the social dynamics with visible curiosity. 8 women and 1 man, the royal harem of the absolute Omnitrix. Gathering to discuss the most important question. What happened next? I vote we establish ground rules before this gets complicated, Kai said immediately. Clear expectations, defined boundaries, regular communication. Quote, I vote we stop treating this like a military operation and accept that emotions are messy, Julie countered. Rules are good, but flexibility is better. Why not both? Attea settled into a chair with aristocratic grace. Structure provides security. Flexibility allows adaptation. We need both. Agreed. Gwen's academic mind was clearly organizing concepts. First principle. Consent is ongoing. Any of us can modify or withdraw from romantic entanglement at any time without judgment or coercion. Second principle. Honesty, Charmcaster added. I've done manipulation. I know what it looks like. We don't do that here. If something bothers you, You say it. Third principle. Individuality maintained, Kai said firmly. We're bonded, not absorbed. Everyone keeps their autonomy, their goals, their identity. Fourth principle. Care is not competition. Looma's booming voice was surprisingly gentle. In Tetraman culture, warriors may have multiple battle spouses. Success measured not by exclusivity but by honor shared among all. This is similar. Yes. Very similar, Eunice confirmed. Though I'm still processing the concept of romantic love versus platonic bonding. I may require additional time to determine my own emotional configuration. Take all the time you need, Ben said. There's no deadline for figuring out feelings. Fifth principle, then, patience. Julie suggested. We're learning. Mistakes will happen. We extend grace. Sixth principle, joy. Ester's soft voice carried unexpected weight. We save universe, yes. Very serious, very important, but we also must remember to find happiness in connection. Otherwise, what is purpose? The principles settled over them like a foundation being laid. Not complete. They'd need to revisit, refine, add nuance. But a start. So, Charmcaster said into the contemplative silence. Are we doing this, officially? 9 pairs of eyes met across the library. Through the bonds, Ben Fay. LT their decision crystallizing. Not uniform, not simple, but unanimous. Yeah, he said, we're doing this. 6 months later, Bellwood. The house had been Kevin's idea, surprisingly. You've saved the universe how many times? The least Earth can do is provide real estate. It sat on the outskirts of Bellwood, custom built to accommodate 9 permanent residents of varying sizes and species. Cryothermal regulation for Ester. Reinforced walls for Looma. A magic workshop for Gwen and Charmcaster. A tactical command center for Kai and Attea. An engineering lab for Julie and Eunice. Regular bedrooms for those who wanted them. Communal spaces designed for 9 very different individuals to coexist. Home. Ben stood in the kitchen. Massive, because feeding 9 people required industrial-scale resources, helping Julie prepare dinner. Or rather, being taught to help, since his cooking skills remained decidedly basic. No, you dice the vegetables, you don't pulverize them, Julie corrected, gently taking the knife from his hands. Technique, Ben. Precision. I can fight temporal tyrants but I can't cut an onion. There's probably a metaphor there. The metaphor is that you're improving. 3 months ago, you burned water. Now you merely massacre produce. Progress. She smiled, and Ship chittered agreement from where he was helping Eunice set the table. Through the open kitchen window, Ben heard Looma training with Kai in the yard, their sparring shouts mixing with Kai's occasional tactical corrections. Heard Gwen and Charmcaster arguing about magical theory in the workshop, their voices carrying that edge of competitive affection that had replaced their old rivalry. Heard Ester explaining cryo meditation techniques to Attea, who was gamely attempting to sit still despite her instinct to always be plotting. 6 months of learning to live together. 6 months of navigating 8 different relationships that were all interconnected. 6 months of figuring out polyamorous dynamics through trial, error, communication, and stubbornness. It was messy. It was complicated. It was the best 6 months of Ben's life. Dinner in 10 minutes. Julie called through the house and the bonds simultaneously. Everyone who wants to eat, get cleaned up. They gathered around the table, custom built, large enough for all 9. And Ben felt the now familiar warmth of family. Not the family he'd been born into, but the family they'd chosen to build. Before we eat, Gwen said, standing with a tablet in hand. I have news. The Plumbers, Galactic Concordat, Anodite Collective, and Incur. Sean Empire have jointly announced official recognition of our royal bond. Legal status across all member territories. We are now formally acknowledged as a united entity with diplomatic immunity and cosmic authority. So we're officially the most powerful polyamorous relationship in the galaxy, Charmcaster said. That's going on my resume. We are also receiving requests, Eunice added, her eyes flickering with data. 17 separate cosmic threats in the past 6 months have requested our mediation rather than face direct confrontation. Our reputation has become deterrent. Fame, fortune, political power, and the ability to intimidate would-be galactic conquerors, Attea mused. I'm not sure if we're heroes or a cosmic protection racket. Why not both? Kai asked, and everyone laughed. They ate together, passing dishes, sharing stories about their individual projects. Gwen was consulting on magical defense systems for the plumbers. Kai was training new Black Ops specialists. Julie had started a company designing adaptive technology for cross-species compatibility. Ester was working with refugee communities, teaching Kraho science to species whose worlds had been destroyed. Attea was reforming Incursine government policy with ruthless efficiency. Looma had become an ambassador for Tetraman culture. Charmcaster was rebuilding Legerdemain's infrastructure. Eunice was researching the nature of consciousness across synthetic and organic life. 9 lives, 9 goals, all interconnected through the bonds but maintaining individuality. After dinner, they dispersed to tea. Various activities, some staying for conversation, others retreating to personal projects, some pairing off for intimate time. The house was designed to accommodate all of it, privacy and community in flexible balance. Ben found himself on the roof, his preferred thinking spot, watching Bellwood's lights twinkle in the dusk. Felt rather than heard someone join him, knew through the bond it was Kai before she spoke. "You come up here when you're worried," she observed, settling beside him with comfortable silence between them. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's what worries me." Ben smiled at her questioning look. "Every time things are good, the universe throws a new crisis. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. The universe threw a crisis. We defeated it. Now we get to live." Kai's pragmatic certainty was soothing. "You don't have to borrow trouble, Ben. There'll be plenty of real problems eventually." "Wow, you're really good at reassurance." "I'm good at honesty. If you want comforting lies, ask Julie." But Kai's small smile said she was teasing. "For what it's worth, I'm glad the universe threw us together. I wouldn't have chosen this. But now that I'm here, I'm choosing to stay." Ben felt the truth of it through the bond, felt all of them in their various locations throughout the house, felt the connection that had gone from cosmic necessity to chosen family. "Yeah," he said, "me too." Others joined them as the evening deepened. Looma arrived with Ester, the unlikely pair having bonded over mutual appreciation for direct communication. Gwen and Charmcaster came up together, still arguing about magical theory but holding hands while they did it. Julie, Eunice, and Ship manifested, drawn by the gathering. Attea appeared last, always strategically timing entrances for maximum presence. 9 individuals on a rooftop, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky, connected by bonds that had saved the universe and were now just living. Learning each other, building something unprecedented. "We should take a photo," Julie suggested. "Official family portrait." "We are not a traditional family," Attea pointed out. "Exactly why we need the photo." Ship obliged, extending a limb with camera functionality. They arranged themselves, sitting, standing, draped across each other with casual affection that 6 months had normalized. Ben in the center, not because he was leader but because the bonds literally radiated from him. The 8 women arrayed around him, connected to him and to each other, all smiling with varying degrees of enthusiasm. The Fa, to capture them. The royal harem of the absolute Omnitrix, saviors of reality, found family, work in progress. Epilogue. 1 year later. The emergency broadcast reached them during breakfast. Cascade. E-level distortion detected in Sector 47. Multiple timelines converging. Requesting royal harem intervention. Ben felt the now familiar rush of adrenaline mixed with anticipation. Not fear. Not with I'd bonded partners who could handle anything the universe threw at them. He looked around the table, saw his own reaction mirrored in 8 different expressions. "Well," Gwen said, already standing and calling mana to her hands. "Duty calls." Indeed. Attea was calculating tactics before she left her chair. Kai, establish perimeter. Looma, heavy assault. Gwen and Charmcaster, magical containment. Julie, Eunice, technical support. Ester, environmental stabilization. Ben, direct confrontation. "I love how you've appointed yourself battlefield commander," Kai observed, but she was already moving, checking her weapons. "Someone has to coordinate, and my tactical credentials are impeccable." "Our tactical credentials are tied, actually, but I'm letting you have this one." Ben transformed into XLR8, the absolute Omnitrix blazing with power that was his and theirs, individual and unified. "Let's move, people. Universe isn't going to save itself. Technically, We're the ones saving it, Eunice corrected. That's what I said. Quote, they deployed from the house in coordinated chaos, ships launching, magical portals opening, Looma simply jumping into the sky with Tetraman's strength enhanced by the bonds. Ben raced ahead at super speed, feeling them behind him, beside him, with him in every way that mattered. The distortion was bad, timelines tangling into probability knots, reality fraying at the edges. But they'd faced worse. They'd faced the cascade itself and won. This was just Tuesday. Ben transformed into feedback, began absorbing the errant temporal energy. Felt Gwen's magic weave through his actions, stabilizing what he couldn't reach. Felt Charmcaster's spells binding reality against further fraying. Felt Kai and Attea's tactical commands directing them with military precision. Felt Julie and Eunice processing data, calculating solutions. Felt Ester's thermal fields creating stability zones. Felt Looma's warrior spirit providing the determination to see it through. Felt all of them, working in perfect synchronization, the bonds singing with harmonic unity. The distortion sealed, reality stabilized, another crisis averted. That was almost too easy, Charmcaster observed as they regrouped. Don't jinx it, Julie said. Jinxing implies superstition. I'm just noting that our response time and efficiency have improved significantly. Because we're getting practice, Ben said. The universe keeps trying to end, we keep stopping it. We've gotten really good at this. Perhaps the universe should consider alternative hobbies, Ester suggested. Reality stability is undervalued. They returned home to find their house had become a gathering place. Kevin was there with his family. Rook had brought his Ravanagander clan for a visit. Max Tennyson was coordinating with various plumber officials. The house that had been built for 9 now regularly accommodated dozens, the royal harem's found family extending outward in ever-widening circles. Ben stood on his familiar rooftop, watching the organized chaos below. Felt Gwen join him, Hermana a comfortable presence. Then Kai, steady and strong. Julie with ship chittering contentedly. Esther's gentle warmth. Attea's sharp intelligence. Looma's booming laugh. Charmcaster's guarded affection. Eunice's processing curiosity. All of them, his partners, his family, his team. Chosen by the universe and choosing each other every day. You know what's weird, Ben said. I spent years thinking the Omnitrix was the most important thing about me. The power, the responsibility, the burden. But it's not. This is. He gestured to all of them. You are. The bonds, the connection, the fact that I'm not alone anymore. That's surprisingly sappy for you, Kai observed. I'm allowed to be sappy. I'm in 8 relationships simultaneously. The sap is inevitable. He makes a valid point, Eunice said. The warrior poet tradition honors emotional honesty. Looma declared. Speak your heart, Ben Tennyson. We are not ashamed. Please don't encourage him, Attea said. His ego is already insufficiently contained. My ego is fine. You're just mad that I'm right. I'm an empress. I'm never mad. I'm strategically irritated. They bantered and argued and laughed, and through it all, the bonds hummed with contentment. Not perfect. Perfection was impossible with 9 strong personalities. But real, chosen, and absolutely worth it. The absolute Omnitrix pulsed on Ben's wrist, power that could reshape reality, save universes, defeat cosmic threats. But the real power wasn't in the device. It was in the 8 women standing beside him. The bonds that connected them. The love they'd built from cosmic necessity into chosen family. 1 man, 8 women, 9 souls in perfect harmony. The royal harem of the absolute Omnitrix. Ready for whatever the universe threw at them next. Together, always together. Below them, the party continued. Above them, stars wheeled in ancient patterns. Around them, the universe they'd saved went about its business. Secure in the knowledge that if reality tried to end again, 9 bonded souls would be there to stop it. Not because they had to. Because they chose to. Because they chose each other. And that choice, more than any cosmic power or ancient device, was what made them truly absolute. Blank, _ blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.